Welcome to a special election episode live from the Capitol, inside the Capitol. I'm Josh West.
And I'm Trey Caldwell.
So
who we got with
us
us, Josh?
tonight, well, I'm going to talk about who's joining us. We got Representative Colin Dole from House District 31, and we've got former representative from House District 55, Ryan McMullen.
Good to be here.
Welcome, gents.
To be here. Yeah, thanks for having me.
So this is the, we've shot a lot of podcasts in this Capitol over the last, going on 5 years. It's
over 50 episodes. We had our 50th episode just this spring.
Last session, so yeah.
Yeah, it's close to 60 episodes.
So this is the election episode. We're going to go over the state races, obviously, that we're involved in, House and Senate, and the statewide races. And then we're going to get into, we got some other stuff going on too. We got Corporation Commissioner race. We've got the judges that were up on the retention ballots. We've got our federal delegation.
Got a couple state
questions. And then we've got obviously the presidential election.
Yeah, and a couple of U.S. Senate races that are really tight, thinking about West Virginia and Ohio and Montana. Mm-hmm. Also some really key congressional races that will make the determination on who the next speaker is, whether it's going to be current speaker Mike Johnson, or if it'll be Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries from New York.
Well,
so I think it'll be super interesting.
That's a very important election, not just for the country, but for the state of Oklahoma, because we have one of our own. Representative Cole is the chair of the approach chair.
Yeah,
and so
chairman of federal appropriations, highest ranking Oklahoman, I think, since Carl Albert.
Wow. So we've had Colin on here on the podcast before.
Yeah.
First time we've had Ryan. Tell us about yourself.
Well, grew up on a farm and ranch out south of Burns Flat, Oklahoma. Grew up on a farm that's been in my family for over 100 years. Seventh generation to live in Ouachita County, my family, and had the honor of serving House District 55. My predecessors are the district currently held by Representative Nick Archer, and then prior to that, Representative Todd Russ succeeded me in office, but enjoyed serving Southwest Oklahoma back in 2004, 2009.
So you came in with my predecessor, Dr. Cox.
I did.
Doug Cox.
Yeah, sure did.
Freshman classmates.
Yeah.
Well, Nick Archer's a great member. As you mentioned, he came in 2022. I've been out there a few times. Been out there deer hunting. That's some big country out there.
Yeah, it is.
Well, thank you both for joining us. Colin's here again. Colin's kind of an old timer now. This is the third time to come on the show.
I think so, yeah. But for any of you guys that don't know me out there, I represent the House District 31. It's a Guthrie area and some of North Edmond. I grew up there, and after high school, I enlisted in the military, served for a few years, and then
Ranger.
Yeah, that's right.
75th boy.
Yeah. I really enjoyed doing that, and then afterwards, I went to college and then law school, and just finished up my first term and excited.
So there's a perception out there that the Capitol's full of attorneys.
Yeah.
Maybe the U.S. Capitol, but we have very few.
Colin and Anthony are doing their best to change and get more and more lawyers back in the building.
Yeah.
So, but
let me recruit. We lost our old buddy on the other side of the aisle, and one of the others, one of my partners that started this podcast, Colin Walkie, he decided not to run in 22. Still keeping in contact. He's still doing data privacy. That's the whole reason we started the podcast originally. So I think he'll show up today. I think we're gonna have several members come on and just kind of hang out. We're gonna throw numbers. We got a bunch of races. We've got 32 House districts, 27 incumbents on the ballot, and the Senate. There's 12 races, only 3 incumbents. So we're gonna have a bunch of new members in the Senate.
Yeah, and I think, just for our listeners and watchers at home, all these numbers that we're going to throw at you tonight, these are all unofficial numbers until they've been certified by the election board. Just want to have that full disclosure. We're getting our data from these election results, either from results.okelections.gov, but also we'll get some phone calls and text messages from different runners that we have across the state and precincts across the state of Oklahoma that are going to be able to tell us what localized precincts are. And I think, as Josh said, there's probably really 5 state house races that we're going to focus on tonight, unless as results come in, we're always going to be able to call an audible. Those are going to be District 100, District 45, District 46, District 64, and District 79. Those are pretty competitive districts, and we're going to here in a little bit, we're going to kind of walk you through some of the data, compare turnout from what it was in 2020 as opposed to what it is in 2024, and we'll see who ends up coming out victorious in those races, whether it's the incumbent or the challenger.
And I'm hoping that, I remember 2016, honestly, when I came in 2006, it was a presidential year. I went to bed that night, and when I woke up, we had President Trump. And in 2020, it was a totally different scenario. And then there was a lot of madness after that. And so I'm hoping that no matter who wins, we have a peaceful transition. And, I wake up every day, I talk about it all the time. We live in a great country. As a military member, every day that I wake up and there's no one shooting at me, I think that is a good day. And so definitely, I want people to stay involved in politics. I mean, and honestly, most people, they look at everything from a federal outlook because they wake up and they watch Fox or CNN or whatever they're watching. And if you want to get mad, then you can get mad, turn on your TV. But a lot of things that affects, our constituents directly, and sometimes it's below our level. Sometimes it's that city council, the school boards and things like that. And so, people need to be engaged and involved. And so I think that, Trey and I mention it often that being a rural rep, and you can both attest to that, being rural reps, that people if people have an issue, they're going to call you because they have your phone number. And I think it's more personal as a rural rep because, when I go to a baseball game or I go to the grocery store or a church or what have you, these are people that know me my whole life. And so I feel like the ties to our districts are very close. Well, what do you want to start on these house races, Colin?
Well, I don't know. I mean, we're just now getting results online. I'm seeing they're just starting to fill in. So if we want, we can go look at some of the historic results from the 2020 race, just on the number of people that came out and voted, and who won and by how much.
And we got about 8 minutes, and I'm going to call Lieutenant Governor Pinnell. He is in Florida at President Trump's watch party, and so he's going to, as we've done before, our cell phones are able to Bluetooth into our machine here. So we'll call him from Trump's watch party and get his take, see what's going on there.
I'm excited to hear what the Lieutenant Governor has to say, just kind of how the environment is down there and what, how excited they are and what the just kind of the circumstances are while he's down there.
I talked to him earlier. I forgot that they're an hour ahead of us. Any preliminary stuff coming in, Trey?
So right now, just the pure preliminary data, this is only for a couple early voting and absentee ballots. Again, just posted first batch that's dropped is former President Donald Trump is up 71% in the state of Oklahoma, as opposed to Vice President Harris's being right at 26% right now. Let's see, I'm gonna pull up the map version and tell you where those results are coming from, and it doesn't tell me. So we'll know more here. We've only had one data drop so far that I can tell. Brian Bingham, Corporation Commissioner, former state senator, is currently leading about 70% to about 25-5 against the Libertarian and Democrat challenger. And so far, these results look to be coming from Eastern Oklahoma because they're also populating in Congressional District 2 with Josh Burkeen taking an early lead as well. Congressman Cole is taking an early lead, around 75%. Same thing with Congresswoman Bice.
So there were two state questions on the ballot that, it was interesting to see the stuff that was showing up in your mailbox. One of them was, you've got, what is that, state question 833? And that was what that would allow for a public infrastructure district. So I seen a lot of stuff, information out there. I didn't think it was a bad thing, honestly, myself. If let's just say where I live, east of Grove, little community wants to pave a road. They want to do their own little infrastructure project. If this does pass, then this would allow them to put a vote before the citizens out there. Let's just say Cowskin Prairie. They would put a vote before the Cowskin Prairie citizens out there, and that road, and any landowner that road touched, it would have to be 100% vote in favor of doing it in order to do that. And it was with property taxes, so millage, right?
Yeah.
And then the other one was they were both constitutional state questions. I believe one of them in the Constitution, it dealt with voting.
Yeah.
So non-citizens, illegal aliens, whatever you
Which
have.
is already currently statutorily
federal.
illegal in Oklahoma, but that was basically enshrining that. And so some data on that, just talking about the two state question issues. Currently, we see state question 833 coming in with the yes side at about 37% and the no side coming in around 63%. This is, again, all early and absentee voting only. We have not had any election day data yet. And then also on 834, we're seeing it overwhelmingly be approved at 83% currently. And then another thing, a point of contention, and Colin, you may be interested in this with you being a lawyer, is it's looking right now that all 3 state Supreme Court justices at District 3, District 4, and District 7 are all currently about anywhere from 8 to 10 points behind. So right now, currently, we're seeing the yes camp losing approximately by about 7 to 10 points.
Yeah, and those 3 races will be interesting to watch because historically, I don't think there's ever been a no vote succeed. The Supreme Court justices or judges on the Court of Criminal Appeals or Civil Appeals, they've virtually always been retained. We've seen sentiment over the past, I would say, 10 years to where the no votes increase. And I think that that's just kind of the general population being skeptical of government in general, whether it's the legislative branch or the judicial branch. But no judges have ever been, as far as I know, everyone's been retained.
So you've got Justice Edmondson and Gurich, and then Justice Cogger.
Yep.
Yeah, and we saw a lot of money spent both sides.
You did.
I'm sure if you guys watch TV at all, you saw some advertisements on TV as well as mailers in your mailbox. So that's been a hotly contested race. I guess you could call it a race. It's kind of interesting because judges are limited in how they can campaign. They virtually can't, so they have to rely on other people to either campaign.
So it's a retention ballot. So there's a lot of, so you have groups on both sides that are out there stumping for or against to keep the judges on or remove the judges. Let's just say that one of the justices is removed. How will that process go after that?
Yep. So basically, if a justice is removed, there would be a vacancy on the court, and then you would have whomever apply to be a justice to be replaced by the governor. So they fill out an application and they have to go through a process. It's called the Judicial Nominating Commission, and it's a body of people, some of them elected, some of them appointed, but they essentially evaluate all the candidates who have applied, and they will decide on their 3 best candidates and send those to the governor, and the governor is able to appoint from those 3. I think the governor has 60 or 90 days to appoint, and if he fails to do so, then the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court would then appoint from the 3. So it's an interesting process. It's supposed to be an apolitical process, but basically that's how it would happen. If those 3 aren't retained, we would have 3 spots where judges from across the state would apply, and the governor would get to pick from the candidates.
So like I mentioned, you've got groups, for or against keeping them on the Supreme Court, but the members themselves, the judges themselves, are not allowed to go talk about what they've done. And so, it's not a true campaign. I guess you could say it's people are campaigning on their behalf, or groups are campaigning on their behalf. Yeah. Well, I'm going to call Lieutenant Governor Pinnell, and we're going to see how he's doing there in Florida here. Yeah, we've got the producer telling me to make sure I put the phone up.
Hello.
Lieutenant Governor Pinnell, you're live in the Oklahoma House of Representatives on the #1 podcast in the state of Oklahoma, Inside the Capitol.
Welcome to the Donald J. Trump watch party from Palm Beach, Florida. You may have heard of it.
I have.
I can kind of explain to you what I'm looking at here. All I'm looking at is a gaggle of press. There's press everywhere that I look. So there's a huge rafter in front of me of, 100 cameras and reporters. There's TV screens everywhere, and everybody is getting ready. I'm going to bring you back, Josh West, a MAGA hat. I've got plenty of these.
So what's the atmosphere like? I would assume not being there, just hearing on the phone. It sounds like it's pretty excited. People are excited there.
Yeah, listen, people are excited. I'd say momentum would maybe be the word that I would use. The early voting that we've seen the last few days, I think, gave Trump supporters some excitement, something to be excited about. Obviously, I'm not holding my breath until I start seeing some of these numbers. But the fact that Florida is really not a swing state anymore, you can kind of put Florida in the same bucket as Ohio, and it's now those upper Midwest, it's the Wisconsins, the Pennsylvanias, and then the Sun Belts of the world. Arizona and Nevada. I mean, those are the swing states now. It's 4 or 5 states that determine who the next president of the United States is. But to see how big of a win Trump is getting in Florida kind of puts them aside, and it's great to see the number in Georgia for Trump as well. That's bodes
and I
well
think
for the rest of the night.
big numbers. We were looking at the early voter turnout, huge numbers in Oklahoma, and I would assume that, and it's not just Republicans, it's both Republicans and Democrats. A lot of people get out to vote. I would assume that's across the board in every state. We've seen a huge increase.
That's right. It is. And listen, that's what you want, right? You want people to get out and vote. You want huge numbers. Donald Trump said, big enough. Let's win so big they can't steal it. We don't have to get into that, but that was kind of their rally cry the last few weeks was, hey, listen, let's get everybody out. And Trump, I think it's a good reminder as well too. Trump told people to go vote early. When Trump says to people that are for Trump to go vote early, guess what? They go vote early. So what we're seeing this election cycle, I've been involved in politics for over a couple decades. I've never seen conservatives vote early and absentee like they are doing this November. Never seen it. We've never been conditioned to vote early. We've always been conditioned to go vote on election day, and then we catch up. We kind of catch up on election day, and I think that's the difference. That will be one of the narratives coming out of this election, if Trump does win, will be that, hey, listen, Republicans finally woke up to the fact that we're so far behind on election day most of the time that we got to get out and vote early, and that's what's happening.
Well, and that's a good thing. We talked about earlier in the podcast. It's important for people to get out there, and we need to pay attention to this stuff, participate in the government. We live in the best country in the world. We have free and open elections. So, hey, I know you're busy, and it sounds like it's a big crowd there, but I hope you have fun. And we'll see you get back to the great state of Oklahoma, LT.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Thanks for doing this.
All right, man. Appreciate you, brother.
So Josh, while for our viewers, while you were on the phone,
You were speaking sign language to me. I don't understand.
Yeah,
sign
I
language
know.
Trey. I mean, dadgum.
Anyway, so we have some pretty shocking results so far after first round of early voting. We have Representative Max Wolfley, who's currently down 10% in his district after early voting. We have Representative Marilyn Stark. She's down 4% through early voting. The judges have pulled back. It's now basically a dead heat, 49.5 to 55.5. Also, some ones I thought were pretty shocking. We see Representative Randy Worthen from Lawton in District 64. He's currently losing. We'll get those numbers. He's losing by about 1 percentage point right now. So a super close race. I think it's going to go. Those results will go late into the night. Also, Representative Daniel Pay just pulled ahead. They released some votes a minute ago, and he was down by a point, but now he's up by a percentage point. Let's see. Nothing yet on the Watson race.
Yeah, I was trying to look at on the Senate Senator Rader that the Tulsa numbers aren't coming in yet.
If you're on the Senate, go down to the Kelly Hines and Aaron Brewer race.
Yeah,
that'll be
there's
one
not
to
a whole
look
lot
at.
coming in. Yeah.
It's 47.
Yeah, so right now it's pretty close. Hines is 57.47 to 55.97, so 50.66 to 49.34. That we knew that was going to be a close race.
Yeah.
That's an open seat. That's Pro Tem Treat. That's he termed out, and so that's his exiting seat. And Hines, I've gotten to know Hines over the last year and a half. Well, he's a military guy. We had a great connection to 101st Airborne Division. He was a pilot with the 160th SOAR. That's a Special Operations Aviation Regiment. You as a Ranger, as a 75th guy, you know those guys all too well.
Those guys gave us a lot of rides.
Yep, stud guys. So that'll be an interesting race. As we mentioned, there is going to be the Senate, of course, it only got 48 members, and so for having such few members, there's going to be a lot of brand new senators coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely 12 at a minimum. And the House side, we had on the Republican caucus specifically, we had 10 that won in the primary, and then we've got 4 that are on the ballot that are heavy Republican districts. So we're just going to make the assumption that we're probably going to have 14 no matter what. And we may pick up onesies and twosies. So it all depends on, sometimes there's an anti-incumbent rhetoric out there, and
Sure.
you may be seeing that today with some of the votes, the early votes that you talked about. Of course, this is way early.
There's still no election day results on any of this state of
those are all
Oklahoma
early
stuff.
voting results. Yeah.
But it seems to be most of the early votes have been tabulated across the state. Ryan, what do you think? I mean, I know when you got here, you had some races that you were interested in. What do you think the overarching theme so far in early voting? Is this traditionally, I think you always see Democrats in more urbanite areas, they kind of jump out to a more early lead, and then election day voting. Do you see that same pattern going forward, or do you think with all the early voting, it kind of cannibalized itself?
Yeah, I think that Lieutenant Governor made an excellent point that, with former President Trump encouraging Republican voters to get out early,
Mm-hmm.
it skews what we have historically expected as far as a partisan advantage for Democrats. And I think in a lot of ways, the early vote numbers that we get now are going to certainly be more telling because, again, there's not that partisan advantage that exists for the Democrats.
So how much has it changed from when you came in 2004 to now 20 years later? I know that when I came in 16, it's got, things have gotten a lot different, especially with social media and things like that.
Yeah.
It was kind of getting, bad when I came in, I thought. And then, 8 years later, I think and we make this point a lot, Trey and I do on the podcast, that people live their lives on social media. And it's very easy to get behind a daggum keyboard and get real big and brave. But you can, when you're sitting in front of somebody and you're saying this stuff, you're probably going to it's probably not going to be that tone. You're probably going to have a different conversation. So I think that, social media is great for putting out information to large groups of people. But at the same time, we've gotten lazy, and it's, people don't want to do research anymore. They get up and, like I said, if you want to have a reason to be mad, just turn on the daggum computer, watch, or turn on the TV. You're going to find a reason to be mad. But we need to get back to whether you agree or disagree with me. Let's have conversations.
Yeah. I count myself so fortunate in the time that I served in this body. It was frankly pre-Facebook days.
Yeah.
And so social media, as I stepped down from the legislature to go on to the next chapter of life, Facebook was just starting to get
you're still back in the MySpace days.
Well, and it was and frankly, people who were using Facebook, it was the very youngest voters, and now Facebook seems to be dominated by some of the very older voters.
Oh yeah. Facebook's a has been a platform for old people now. I mean, I remember my parents growing up, they were like, don't play video games, it's gonna rot your brain out. And then that generation, it seems like they're the ones that got on Facebook and stay on Facebook all the time.
And to your point, it's certainly has the ability to social media has the ability to connect people and allows people to organize around shared values and ideas. But it's also a way that, as we've seen, a lot of disinformation has been disseminated. Oftentimes, I see what you all are subjected to with certain constituents that rather than picking up the phone or sending you an email and having a real conversation, it'll just be some type of cheap shot that's placed against your Facebook or your Instagram, and it's not really anything that is going to facilitate dialogue.
No, it's not. It's meant for one thing, and people, they forget. We're not robots up here. I got a wife and I got 4 kids, and I deal with the same issues that everybody deals with. And so I think when they get used to just getting behind a stinking keyboard and getting crazy, then they don't, they don't associate us with being people, And so, when my boys, I remember when I came in 16, when I started campaigning at 15, my youngest was 9 months old. She's now 10. And then I had a 3-year-old who's now getting ready to turn 12. And then my boys were 8 and 9, and I've got one that'll be 18 coming up and one that's 17. And so when my boys, when they had to have computers for school and they learned how to Google my name, that they were like, Dad, this person said this about you. And, and so, sometimes people forget that, hey, you got kids, and everything you say and do out there, especially if you're an elected official, you have a big voice, you have a big platform. When you get out there and get nutty, people see that, and people that look up to you see that.
Yeah.
And so I got to even remind myself that stuff. I'm not totally innocent. Been a lot of lessons learned since I came in 2016, and so yeah, it'll be interesting to see when Colin, who's just finished his first full term, he's getting ready to start his third year coming up, when he's in our spot, when he's in that 9-10 year mark, and see what it is then. So
yeah, it's kind of hard to predict. These things that what is the old saying? Politics is downstream of culture.
Mhm.
So with the way things are going, I would be hesitant to predict. I was just here on these are numbers from Fox News, but I'm kind of keeping my eye on some of the eastern states with regards to the presidential election. And there's just over 7.5% in from Pennsylvania, and I know that's one of the swing states. And it looks like Kamala Harris is at a little over 72%.
Yeah, she got big numbers right now.
Just shy 27%. So, but these are early numbers, but these will be states to watch. So kind of glued to these.
Pennsylvania it's so fascinating in that it's being a northeastern state. I think a lot of people don't recognize how conservative some of those rural counties are. I think
Especially in the rural between the two, Pittsburgh and Philadelphia.
James Carville had the old saying that Pennsylvania, you've got Philly and Pittsburgh on each side, and you've got Alabama
in the middle.
right in the middle of it. And
and you came in from there where we had big blue dog population in Oklahoma.
Yeah,
I mean, I remember when specifically, I'm a Delaware County guy, so I remember in Delaware County, if you weren't registered as a Democrat, you couldn't vote. And that's why it was a lot of rural Oklahoma. And I don't know when that tide was. I think it was probably you started to see a big change around 2008, 2010. Those blue dog Democrats began registering as Republicans. My dad was an old blue dog, and I was talking to him when he changed over, and he just felt like the party had kind of left him, and so. And that was kind of what a lot of people around my area, the former Democrats, said. So.
Yeah, I've found in the time that I served, and again, I served from 2004 to 2009. That was really an acceleration point of those blue dog Democrats switching, and several things taking place at that point. One was certainly the rise of social media, but that was also the rise of cable news. And in a lot of ways, that was really the time that our politics became nationalized, and it was really difficult for progressive Republicans or conservative Democrats to be able to distinguish themselves from the rest of the ticket when folks are tuning into Fox News or MSNBC every evening and basically just being inundated with partisan messaging and just assuming that all Democrats and all Republicans are the same based on a lot of that messaging.
I see John Piper has showed up here. He's a District 38. We'll get his jacket on and he come here and talk. So as mentioned, this is the first time that we've done a lot of podcasts, and we've always got Caroline to edit this thing, but this is going to be a good experiment tonight.
Colin, you want to give me the results? And I'll put these tentative results that we have up here on the board.
Let me refresh what we have here. Let's see.
So District 100 is going to be Marilyn Stark. She is a 6-year member, third and term going to her fourth term. Eastern Oklahoma County, District 100. What are those kind of looking at as of right now? Early voting. Early voting. Not going to be final numbers. We can kind of track this and see how she moves along across farther along the night.
So right now, Maryland's at 1,702 votes, which is 48%, 48.08. And then her opponent is Gilmore at 1,838. 838 with 51.92%.
And what about District 45, which that would be Matt Watson, I believe?
Let me.
Matt Watson is challenging Democrat
Andy Mintz.
We don't.
Oh, it's Cleveland.
Southern Cleveland County area. So we don't have any preliminary results right there on District 45. What about 46, Colin?
Nope. Nothing out of Norman.
So nothing yet coming out of Cleveland County. 64, you passed it. Back up. This is going to be Randy Worthen. This is Eastern Lawton. Basically everything west of 38th Street or east of 38th Street in Lawton, going all the way to the county line. going out into rural western eastern Comanche County. Right now, we're going to be in a really tight race. What are the numbers called?
So you got Randy Worthen with 1,453, which is all right. And then you got he's at 49.15%, and then you got Sutherland with 1,503, which is 50.85%.
We're starting to see some of the election day results come in for some of the other, especially the rural districts here. I just seen we've got Representative Fettgetter, District 16, 2197 to 1,105, 66.54 to 33.46. So John Piper just showed up. What's going on, my man?
Thanks for having us. No, just, like everybody else, looking at 4 or 5 computer screens at once, scrolling on my phone, just trying to figure out what's going on in the world.
It's a little bit more difficult when I was trying to keep track of this thing, refresh everything. It's a little more difficult when you're trying to do it at the same time as you're reading results off here.
Yeah, it is. It's been an interesting election cycle. I mean, we've seen huge, and I know you guys have talked about it a little bit already, but we've seen a huge uptick in early voting numbers in the state of Oklahoma. If you look back 4 years ago, we had, where's my printout here? We had about in-person early votings.
Get it on auto.
Probably I just had it. About 165,000, and we've seen that increase to 292,000, give or take, about 121% increase in 4 years. And I think, like you said, it's because President Trump talked about, and early voting's okay now. Is get out there, do it. I know we've seen huge numbers across the state, long lines. I know we've talked to lots of people who've stood in line at their county election boards, hour and a half, 2 hours, some cases, just to try to get out there and early vote. And so it's been interesting.
And this
to
is your
watch.
final election.
It is.
So sixth term, starting your 11th year. Been a deputy floor leader for what, six of the last 6 years? So seven out of your last 10 years. So
it's been interesting and fun. I've really enjoyed getting to work with all the people I've got to work with on the House, doing the things we've got to do, and just trying to, floor leaders' jobs to try to keep the floor running smoothly. Fail at that from time to time, but we try awful hard. I'm sure that hadn't changed much.
No. Democrats don't make that easy.
Right. Well, that's their job. That's sometimes I remind people, we'll have, Democratic members ask a bunch of questions or debate things, and people get mad. And I'm like, that's their job. I mean, they're in the minority in the state House right now, so their job's to vet the policy and be the minority party. You can't get mad at people for doing their jobs.
Well, John, while you're here, I'll give you an update on your race. House District 38, Representative Piper has 3,179 votes to his challenger, Doyle Lewis, who has 733 votes. So John has just a little bit over 81% of the vote there.
Thank you. That would be heartwarming, and if I wasn't, also sharing the stage here with Trey Caldwell, who is up 2,564 votes to his opponent's 720 votes. So, it's after doing this for 10 years, I really appreciate all the confidence that my district's done to me. It's especially considering I represent 3,101 square miles and less than 10 stoplights. So,
from the big town of what's the name of that town you're from? Orlando.
Mall Orlando. Yeah.
So Bingman, right now with 69 of his precincts reporting. Brian Bingman for Corporation Commissioner, he is up 62.65%. Spalding is this in second place here. We've got 31.56, and then Williams bringing up the third position here at 5.79. So we're starting to see. Usually in Oklahoma, usually by 9:30, we pretty much got all the results, and especially in our level with the state house and state senate races. Sometimes the statewide take a little bit longer to get in, but by 10 o'clock we pretty much know.
Our election board does such a great job of getting these of running these elections, getting these votes counted, and then making it in an easy way to view on your phone, on the internet. I mean, the way they've presented it, and since they updated the format, a year or so ago. It really makes it easy. So.
And we do have a safe election process. Got to remind people every time. We have the same machine in every precinct in every county. There's no difference in our machines. I don't know what they do in other states, but I know in Oklahoma we do have a safe election process. I see Representative Steve Bayshore is getting ready to join us here. He's brought donuts, so thankful for. God bless you, brother. Going back and look at some of the Supreme Court judicial retention. So District 3. The yes, and we've got some election day results coming in that. So yes to keep is 49.07 to 59.3. I don't know if that closed in a little bit, Trey, since you read it last time. District 4, the yes for retention is 48.25, no's 51.75, and then the District 7, it's 49.28 to 50.72. So pretty close in all three of those seats right there.
It is. And currently, they're still counting the ballots, but I just checked because you can go county by county. Vice President Harris is currently up in both Oklahoma and Tulsa County.
And that's to be expected. That's what we typically see in Oklahoma and Tulsa County early on. I think as the night goes through, just historically, I think that we'll probably see what we have in the previous elections with when Trump's been on the ballot.
Yep.
That Trump will. I think he's won all 77 counties. The previous two times, yeah.
I don't know that this year will be. I think this year might be 76 of the 77.
You think Oklahoma County will go?
I think Oklahoma
Harris?
County this very well might be the year it goes blue.
I keep thinking there's a possibility that this year, if Oklahoma County goes blue, that number one, that could happen, but number two, that the city of Oklahoma City, because it's so large, its landmass is so large, its city limits go so far outside Oklahoma County. I think you could see a scenario where Harris wins Oklahoma County, but Trump actually wins Oklahoma City. And I'm not exactly sure how to break that down and look, but because Oklahoma City, you're going into Canadian County. Yeah, and stuff. So I just think that to be a political nerd, I think that'd be interesting. So
our U.S. representatives, those numbers are coming in. Some of the Tulsa numbers are coming in. Kevin Hearn, the incumbent, is up 55.89 to 40.61. And Mark Sanders is in third with 3.49%. District 2, which is my representative, Congressman Burkeen, there's 37 out of the 545 precincts reporting, and he is up 71.8. To 24.9 and 3.28. And then District 4, which is Representative Cole, with 14 of the 361 precincts reporting, he's up 67.52 to 27.36, and third is 5.13. And then finally, Congresswoman Bice. And there's some precincts that are starting to come in from Oklahoma City area here. There's 8 have been reported, so she's up 57.67. to 42.33. She's running against Madison Horn. Madison Horn is obviously, she's ran for office before.
Yeah, ran for U.S. Senate, was it 2 years ago?
Ran for the Langford seat.
Yeah.
Or not the Langford, but the in-office seat.
Yeah.
Yeah. I tried to get Senator Mullen on the phone tonight because he's there. He's also at the Trump Watch Party. And I talked to him a few nights ago, and he was up in Wisconsin. He's been traveling a lot. For the past year, he's been traveling a lot with the Trump team. He's always been close. A few years ago, his oldest son had a TBI, and I know that he really got close with President Trump at the time. With getting him flew him out to California, got his family out to California, and they got real close, and they've been close ever since. And so it'll be interesting to see, depending on this election, if Trump wins the election, what happens. There's a lot of moving parts with that, as we mentioned earlier, and Mullen and I have known each other. I'm 48 years old. It's 35 years plus that we've known each other. His aunt and uncle live in my hometown. And so it's fun, to see people that you grew up with and you spent time with doing good things. So
I just saw the AP just called CD2 for Josh Burkeen.
I just called it.
There to go.
So while we're talking about the U.S. Senate race of national consequence that is, I don't think is a surprise that it's this close, but Texas U.S. Senate race between Ted Cruz and Colin Allred is a 0.6%
really
difference with 53% of the vote reporting. So,
there's 53% reporting already.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's surprising. I mean, Texas is 6 times the size of Oklahoma. Well, that'll be interesting. I've gotten a dozen text messages from
No,
from
Colin.
Cruz.
Well, and I get text messages from Colin Allred, and that both of them are very well funded candidates, and it is certainly the abortion issue is one that seems to really be driving that race in Texas, and I think in the absence of that, it wouldn't be as close as it is, but I think it's has the potential to continue to be competitive tonight.
Well, and I think because Texas historically votes so red, I think we forget how close Cruz's race was 4 years ago as well, or sorry, 6 years ago. I mean, that was one of those really close Senate races that kind of came down to the wire against was it Beto O'Rourke, I think, 6 years ago.
And Democrats were very hopeful, and Texas is kind of one of those Lucy holding the football for Charlie Brown kind of states. It's Democrats continue to have hopes, but every election that goes by that they don't come to fruition, it's get a few more skeptics out there.
Another
I was just going to interrupt a little bit. I think we're getting quite a few questions about the 2 state questions. So I'll do my best to explain, and you guys kind of chime in where you can. First state question 833.
Took a big jump down.
Yep, took a jump down. Right now, it's at about 38% for the proposal and just over 61% against the proposal. So 833 is Representative West mentioned earlier. It creates public infrastructure districts. My understanding of it is that if all of the property owners within this district agree, they can issue a bond to where it raises their property taxes until the bond is paid off over time. My understanding or my hypothetical that I use to understand it is if a developer or a group of developers purchase property within, does it have to be within city limits?
It does have to be within city limits because
can't
it
be
has to
county.
go to the city council.
Yep. So if they purchase property within city limits and they begin a development, they can petition city council to agree to create a public infrastructure district within that development, and they can use that bond to develop roads, parks, things like that that'll help that specific community. And the property tax increase only impacts the property within that district. Do you guys have anything else to add?
No, I mean that's the gist of it. I don't think the proponents of this state question did a very good job explaining the actual intricacies of how this is going to work and the checks on it that have to go through. Anytime you're doing anything that addresses property taxes in Oklahoma, it's going to be a tough sell to begin with. And I think they really dropped the ball on just explaining what this question actually does.
And, I my analysis of it, I'm kind of torn both ways because I'm a big free market guy. And I don't know that if a purchaser of a property within that public infrastructure district would understand that, hey, your property taxes are increased here, but it's funding the road. Where if John and I go develop a property and we have to eat that cost by developing the road, we're going to get a return when we sell the house or the property there. We're going to include that into our costs. So I don't know. It was kind of complicated. I think that's one of the issues with it and why it's not doing as well.
I think so. And I mean, at the end of the day, that these developers who do these subdivisions and developments and things like that, they're going to get their money back. To me, it came down to, are they going to be able to, add on to your house up front, the cost of the roads, connected up to sewer or water, or are they going to be able to amortize it out over 10 years? Either way, the homeowner's paying for it.
Right.
It was just kind of, how are you going to pay for it? Are you going to pay for it up front, or are you going to pay for it in property taxes over 10 years?
And that was put on the ballot with a joint resolution. It seems like since I came in 2016, most things on the ballot are done by initial petition.
Right.
That first year I ran in 2016, we had the alcohol modernization state question. I think Stephanie Bice, Congressman Bice now.
Yes, she did.
She ran that. And then, you had the medical marijuana on the ballot in 2018. I know that you and I were both up here from, that passed in June of 2018. And we started meeting in July, 2 days a week until November. And it was a tough deal because it was, 57% of the state voted for that. And so we spent the next few months up here. We had proponents of it. We had law enforcement up here. We had those who didn't want it. We had every side up here. And we were held, I guess the difficult part for us was, you had something that was illegal both state and federally, prior to June 26th or 28th, whenever that primary election was. When it did pass, we had 30 days for the Department of Health to promulgate emergency rules. You had 30 days after that for them to begin accepting patient applications and commercial, applications, and then 30 days after that to implement this program. And so it's been a tough deal. It's been a huge learning curve for us. And I remember talking to a doctor at that time who was up here testifying before the committee, and I said, how long did it take? They're from California. And I asked this doctor, I said, how long did it take you to get your medical marijuana program where it needed to be? And this doctor said, well, it's been 25 years and we're still not there. We're still working on it. And so it's, if you look at the states around the country that, had passed it or it was already in place, we're still a new program. And so it seems like every year that we have legislation that runs, dealing with that.
Well, and it will be that way. I mean, heck, in Oklahoma, we were really big fans of prohibition and brought it back later than the rest of the country. But in the 10 years I've been here, we've passed at least 1 or 2 alcohol bills every year. I mean, this is something that's going to continue to be policy we work on forever. I mean,
well, a lot of that's because there's unintended consequences.
That's right.
With every piece of legislation. I mean, specifically with that, I had constituents in my district that, the old law was you had to use Oklahoma trucking companies to transport, right? When that passed, that did away with that. It changed people's whole lifestyle because, I think specifically with that, when that passed, that allowed the majority companies to be owned by an out-of-state, someone from out of state. And so that changed the way we did things. And so we run bills every year with that. Same thing with marijuana. We run bills every year with that. The constitutional state question that passed in 20, I believe, was the medical or the Medicaid expansion. That, of course, that was constitutional. And so, with the statutory state question, we can run legislation to address, changes as long as it doesn't go against the intent of the state question. With a constitutional state question, that's a whole different story. And so we went through in 2020 when the Medicaid expansion passed, we dealt with a lot of issues just within internally. And then back and forth with the government at times, whether we were going to use managed care versus, we already had Medicaid and say we have Sooner Care in the state of Oklahoma that operates at a 4% overhead. And so we were looking at a cost standpoint as the legislature. Our job is to ensure that we're being good stewards of your tax dollars. And so, we ran a bill in 2021 that said, no, we're going to keep that. We're not going to use managed care. We're going to keep it in the state and run it through Sooner Care and keep those tax dollars. Our thought process was, hey, this is a lot of money. I think it's around $2 billion that we're going to send to essentially out-of-state insurance companies. We're going to keep that in the state, run it through Sooner Care. And then, of course, that got vetoed. And so, we have, I get it. The healthcare community obviously was a big, proponents of it. They wanted it, especially rural Oklahoma. I don't know if they've seen if they've seen the benefit that they thought it would have, the return on investment. But it'll be interesting to see how that process. You've tried to run legislation in years past dealing with how we get signatures for initiative petitions.
I have, and as we've seen the initiative petition process change a little bit from, at least in my opinion, how it was kind of initially intended. What we've seen is, more, and not just here in Oklahoma, but nationwide. You're seeing more money from outside the states coming in to influence these things. You're seeing more people getting paid to collect signatures. You're seeing, just more and more money coming into these issues. Oddly enough, though, not on medical marijuana. The medical marijuana was, you talk about a true grassroots movement. It was paid. It was paid for. Got the signatures collected. Everything here. I knew a couple of years ago I ran a bill that said, if you were going to put an initiative petition on the ballot, you needed to get an equal number of signatures from all 5 congressional districts. And the gentleman who kind of spearheaded the medical marijuana thing reached out to me because I was getting a lot of pushback, and he goes, "Man, that's fine. Everybody in Oklahoma wanted weed. You want me to go out to the Panhandle and get signatures? I can show you the signatures we got from the Panhandle. We wanted it."
Well, thank God for Scott Fager. He had to run most of that legislation.
That's right.
Which he is on the ballot tonight, as we mentioned. I've seen his numbers here recently.
I feel like I'm stealing Trey's chair. I'm gonna have to give it back to him here in a second, but I did want to point out one. Yeah.
We want to go to the board.
You got the board? Okay, so a couple little updates right now. We see Maryland Stark currently down 53 votes in her district with about, what is that, about 15% reporting column. So still early time for incumbent Maryland Stark in Eastern or Western Oklahoma County to maybe come back. And down in Cleveland County, we finally got some results in the two probably highly contested races. That is incumbent Jacob Rosencrantz in 46 and incumbent Annie Menz in precinct 45, or maybe that's vice versa.
You're right.
Okay. So right now in precinct 45, both incumbents are up about 45, 54%. You can see with 4312 to 3416 and then 6306 to 5009. We go down and focus in my county.
Here, I'm going to scoot the board back this way. So you get.
Microphone, yeah, we're getting people texting saying they can't hear us. Is that better, Caroline? All right, awesome. So in precinct or in House District 64, incumbent Randy Worthen is still down. We still haven't had any election day data drop in Comanche County yet. So in State House seat 62 with Daniel Pay, incumbent Daniel Pay, he's still barely up. I think 1 or 2%, about 2% in his race. Randy Worthen is still down in House District 64, but again, no election day data has populated in the website. If we spin over to the Senate race, Senate seat 47, State Senate seat 47. That race is tightening. We're starting to see a little bit of data in. We've had one election day precinct come in. Republican Kelly Hines is currently at 51% with 6,233 votes, and Democrat Aaron Brewer is at 5891 votes, about right at 49%. If we go to State Senate seat 39, again, still same data as we have on the board, 3620 and to 3414. No additional data has dropped yet on that seat. That'll be former Tulsa University head coach Dave Rader from Tulsa, and his challenger is a Democrat by the name of Melissa Bryce. So still waiting. We haven't got any election day data yet from Tulsa County. We've had a little bit from Oklahoma County start trickling in. Still Comanche County we're not really seeing any there as well. As for on the national level, okay. Yeah, so right now, Stark, again, in District 100 in Western Oklahoma County is still within 53 votes. Relatively, that's very close. What about the races of the judges? How are the three judges doing right now? I know it's that it kind of the no campaign jumped out to an early lead, and we're now we're starting to see that tick back up to the yes campaign. So District 3, which is Gurich, right now the yes, which is the retain side, is at 49.3%. About 7,000 votes down. And then District 4, the retention side, which is Kager, again, a little bit farther down, about probably 15,000 votes, so about 2% down. And then Supreme Court District 7, which is going to be James Edmondson, he's going to be just barely down. He's only down about 1,200 votes, so 49.85%. With 25% of the state of Oklahoma reporting.
Races that they are calling. Good member Nick Archer just texted me and said that KOCO has called the following races. Again, these are not our numbers. These are being called by KOCO. In the Senate, you've got they're calling the McIntosh Senate race. Or they're calling the race for McIntosh. Hamilton also. Securi, I don't know if I pronounced that right. In the House, they've called the Dempsey race, Luttrell race, Pfeiffer, they've called your race, Trey Caldwell, they've called your race, Stairs, Van Buren, Hardin, Representative David Hardin, he's out by me. He represents Southern Delaware County, Adair County, and also the Pogmiller race. So
And I just saw a news update here. News 9's reporting AP just called Trey, your Congressman Tom Cole's won re-election for the 4th District.
Good day for Oklahoma.
Yes, it is. Another interesting race I think we need to watch a little bit tonight is the Tulsa mayor's race.
yeah,
I mean, this one's been getting a lot of press. It's been really, I mean, I live a long way from Tulsa, but it's been interesting as a political junkie. It's just been interesting to watch. With 5 of 163 precincts reporting, our former colleague Monroe Nichols is up 57% to Karen Keith, former county commissioner, I believe, to 42%. Her 42%.
that's been interesting to follow. You know, as you said, we served with one running, and
Yeah.
so just looking from the outside, you know, that's going from a House district of 39 to 40,000 people to, I don't know, what's the population in Tulsa, 500,000. I mean, it's so totally different ball game, totally different scenario. Even though it's a mayor's race and a mayor position, it's totally different than a House seat.
And it's very important because Tulsa is one of the few cities in the state of Oklahoma that operates kind of under the strong mayor system.
Mhm.
Oklahoma City, almost all the communities in my district, most of them have city managers who help manage those cities. City of Tulsa, the mayor's it. They don't have another city manager. They don't operate a city manager. So whoever wins that race is gonna actually have to go out there and do the job. So it'll be one to keep an eye on for the rest of the night.
Whoever wins that has got to surround themselves with good people.
Yes.
I mean, that's probably the most important part of that job. Monroe, obviously, he was a TU standout football player, and he came in with me in 2016, so he just finished his 8th year, and the numbers have been showing for the last 2 weeks that he was going to win that. And like I said, it's going to be an eye-opening experience for him. So I'm sure that he's thought about that and thought about the people he wants to surround him with if he is in case elected as mayor. And I'm happy for him.
Well, it's got to be at least a little fun from a member of the legislature to go into an executive role, because how many times have we sat on the floor,
No kidding.
Thought about the executive branch, you go, if I was in the executive, if I was governor, this is what I would do. So now he gets there's a chance he might get the chance to, actually do that, be in that executive role, which will be a fun change of pace, I would imagine.
Well, we've got 570. So going back to the presidential race, 570 of 1,984 precincts reporting. Trump is up 65.55%. Vice President Harris, she's at 32.92%. And then the rest are, there's a few others on there, but there's been a total 615,864 votes counted so far in that. Corporation Commissioner with Brian Bingman is up 63.45% to 30.17, and Williams is in third with 6.38%. So
I appreciate y'all having me on.
Yeah, you don't gotta leave here, brother. You ain't gotta leave. We do have somebody else here though. We can get in Steve Bayshore here.
Steve Bayshore up here
in the background
for a little bit. He's got a face made for camera.
Steve's
got a face made for podcast.
Steve's got
I need to come back.
Steve's got a radio voice too.
So
first time I met Steve, thanks for coming on, man. I know you're gonna go. I think Channel 9 and jump on
Channel 9
with John Eccles.
then,
So we've got a few members tonight that are out about. John Eccles is Channel 9 tonight, and I believe that the incoming our speaker designee, Kyle Hilbert, what's he with Fox 25?
yes.
So he's here locally with Fox. So it's fun.
Thank you all. Have fun.
Absolutely. Hey, be good there, Piper. Good job tonight. Congrats on your assumption that you're going to win this thing, and you got 2 years to go finish it out strong.
That's right. 2 years of abandoning my wife February through May, when she's got to do bedtime and stuff alone. So
it's tough when you got young ones. I've been through there, and God bless the mamas out there, and then the daddies are raising them kiddos.
Yeah, I know you mentioned your kids earlier, and I just can't say enough good things about my wife and all of our wives who basically turn into single parents at least 4 months out of the year. So
it's gotten easier over time with as my kids have gotten older. But I remember when that first year, man, it was a big, it was a learning curve just with the job. And then, I worked in a job where I was home every night. And next thing you know, you win your election. You're up here 2 weeks later, you're getting sworn in. And they say, hey, your bill titles are due. And oh, by the way, we got new member orientation. And so starts this. And you're new, so you're up here a lot more than the incumbents. And so from November through You finish out November, you take a break for Thanksgiving, you come back in December, you got caucus, your caucus meetings, come up with your caucus priorities, and then January hits and you're in budget oversight committee hearings. And next thing you know, you're at the state of the state and you've spent about 2 weeks home in between the election and session starting. So
Trey's going to get to experience that this year with a whole, why aren't you home more? And the favorite now is if you miss bath time and bedtime, then I don't care what time you get home because you've missed the hard part anyways. So you might as well stay and finish up your work. So that's always a lot of fun. You'll have fun.
It's going to be okay. Life's going to go on.
See you, John.
Bayshore, jump on up here.
You want to cut to the board real quick, Carol?
Yeah, we'll go board update. So we're not jumping to the board yet.
I turn my mic back on. I'm back on. All righty. So again, we're still looking at some kind of updates we've gotten. Both of the Cleveland County races have not necessarily gotten any tighter. They've the incumbents have kind of started to pull away just a little bit, with Annie Mins increasing her lead to 63.94 to 53.72, about 52% to 44%. And then Jacob Rosenkrantz is winning by about 10% right now. He's at, this board doesn't reflect it, but he's winning 73.56 to 62.06 with about 40% of election day results reporting. Some of the other races, we're finally starting to get some results from Comanche County with Senator or Representative Randy Worthen. It's still down, very close race, 1769 to 1779. So he's down 10 votes right now. For our friends that are listening in Comanche County and know the area a little bit, those results that have come in right now so far have been in traditionally kind of moderate areas. The election day results, none of the big Republican precincts or the big Democrat precincts have reported yet. I think at the end of the day, it's really going to come down to precinct 1631, 1633, 1634, which is your Sullivan Village, Park Lane, MacArthur area, and then also Ranch Oaks and South Lawton, precincts 25 and 24. I think at the end of the day, those 5 precincts are probably going to be the keys to that race with Randy Worthen. Another race that we've had a little bit of interest in is Melissa Provenzano and State Representative District 61 or 79. Excuse me. Still, that's Payne County. No election day results have come in yet. She's currently up about 13 percentage points, about 350 raw votes. We continue to see the yes for retention chip away at the no side. Especially with Edmondson, him right now being the closest to being retained in District 7 at 49.75%, with the other two being right at 49%. So with that, that's kind of our brief update from the board. I'll kick it back to Josh and the rest of the boys.
Sure, my mic. So we're going to bring in Bayshore. We'll swap over there where Colin was. So just looking at some of the state representative races, the House District 4, that's Bob Ed Culver, and with 81% precincts reporting, he is up 66.95 to 3305. So that's getting real close to his precincts being in. The Chapman Ray District 12. So that is former representative or outgoing representative Kevin McDougal. Mark Chapman is running against Crystal Lagrone, and he's currently up 77.34 to 22.66. Still got only 25% reporting there. We'll go down to 16 with Fett Getter. 17 out of 31 precincts reporting. Fett's up 68.20% to 31.8. We're starting to see a lot of the rural districts come in with their precincts. So we got Steve Bayshore. He's the representative. What's your district? 7 or 6? I always forget.
District 7.
So 7.
What's yours?
Mine's 5. So he came in 2020. He replaced the outgoing Ben Loring. First time I met Steve was Dr. Hell was the president of NEO at the time, and we went to a retirement ceremony. And Ben said, Ben had told me he wasn't going to run, And I said, well, I'm going to go find a Republican for your seat. And I figured that, that's that's an old B.F. Goodrich town. Historically, that's an old Union town.
Sure.
And I really thought you would have a Democrat opponent. But, I met with Dr. Hell and I said, hey, I need some, if you've got any ideas of somebody that's interested in running for this, give him my name and let's talk. And so I met you that summer at his retirement party in 2019.
Yes, sir.
And we've been hanging ever since, man.
Absolutely.
So
Been a good,
I was
been a good run.
that first year, you did not draw an opponent.
Sure.
And when we were looking for someone to run in that seat, we did voter ID.
Josh, just to interrupt you just for a
Trey's
little
got-
second.
Trey's got some numbers.
We got some news. I'm gonna kick it to Ryan real quick. He's got some few updates from the national race, from the Trump race. I know a lot of our listeners, and sorry to interrupt you, Steve, and we'll get back
That's
to you in
what he
just a
does, though. He
second.
does it all the time on that.
Easy. We're going to kick it to Ryan real quick, and he's going to touch a little bit on some of the kind of national stuff. Maybe I think you talked about a Senate race in Ohio that the incumbent Senate is currently down. So Ryan,
Yeah. So been keeping an eye on so many races across the board. One of the ones that's really kind of piqued my interest is in Ohio. Incumbent U.S. Senator Sherrod Brown. Speaking of somebody that tends to have a lot of union support from a historically strong union state, a lot of really good working class bona fides. He is really slipping pretty rapidly in the poll results here. Looks like he's down about 1.5 points right now with 51%. Obviously, with just 51% in, 1.5 points. Race can change, but certainly Democrats would be concerned about holding a majority if Senator Brown went down. We also talked about earlier the Texas race with Senator Cruz and Congressman Allred. Cruz has opened up a 5-point lead in that race with about 61%. So that's looking a little bit more comfortable for him at the moment. Those are the two that I'm looking at on the Senate side.
So 928 precincts reporting right now. We go back to the presidential race. Trump still has a big lead with 66.83% to 31.49%. So we're starting to see a lot of those. I would imagine that most rural districts are reporting. I look at where Bob Ed is from, the Tahlequah area, and that's a pretty large. I consider that a city compared to where I'm from, and so his were mostly in here. We've got, like I said, they've already called some of these in the media, but we've got with 50 of 296 precincts reporting in that U.S. Representative District 1. So that's Representative Hearns, the incumbent. He's up 58.7% to 37.06. They called the Burkine already. We've got District 4, Tom Cole. They called Representative Cole's district already. The media did. And then District 5 with Bice, she's up 58.13% to 41.87% with 91 precincts reporting. You got something, Trey?
yeah, I got something right here. We just had another data dump in Comanche County. Randy Worthen is now up 10 points, 2369 to 1932. I'm gonna pull up the map real quick. So people following along at home can kind of know. Okay, that's coming from two Republican stronghold precincts reported. That's going to be the far eastern Comanche County, more of a rural area, not Lawton proper. So that it's always historically broken for Republicans. That precinct has. So Randy's pulled it back ahead. We're still curious to see. There's about 3 or 4 historically Democrat precincts that have yet to report. Where Tom Sutherland ran up pretty good 2-1, 3-1 type margins in early voting, and I think Election Day will hold similar to that. And I'm very anxious to see how that projects through Election Day when you see a accumulation of all the votes.
Did you see polls beforehand? What Trump was polling with the Democrats in that district?
Yeah. So that district, last I saw, and I only saw the top line. I saw Trump was running about 8 points ahead. So about 54-46 was what the thought was with former President Trump in that specific district.
So let's get back to Representative Bayshore. So like I mentioned, Representative Bayshore came in 2020. He's starting his 5th year. Something up our way in Northeast Oklahoma. Craig County had a proposition on the ballot. You mentioned that. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, definitely. It's something that many districts on the eastern side of the state are really looking at. It has to do with county zoning. The county commissioners there in Craig County put it up for a vote. There was a lot of strong opposition for it, and a lot for it, because basically it boils down to wind turbines. Are they going to have wind energy? And landowners were very concerned about telling the government, telling us what we can do, what we can with our land, what we can't do with our land, while others are saying, hey, look, these are coming in here. What are we going to do? Well, we have environmental hazards. We have basically the aesthetic of it, who knows what. But strangely, I didn't know if how it was polling, honestly, but against the proposal is coming in at 81% right now against.
Yeah,
which is
there's only 13 precincts too, so 10 of 13 reporting, 81% against the proposal, which I think that, and that's the way I thought it was going to go. Anytime you're in rural Oklahoma, you're getting the zoning restrictions. That's a touchy subject. I've dealt with it in my own district with poultry, for instance.
Sure.
I'm a landowner guy. I'm a property rights guy, and I think rural Oklahoma is going to be tough for any proposition like that to pass because of the fear and Trey, kind of the same thought process I have. When you get into zoning restrictions, there's a big fear that it'll go above and beyond what it actually is intended for.
Yeah, what's next?
And I think it just, you talk anytime about property rights, and my personal opinion is that property rights are sacred. If not, we can invoke Maoism or some level of Leninism and post October Revolution in Russia. So the government does not need to be in the business of telling people what they can do on their property. We already have a robust legal system that is really, really good at, if I do something on my property that adversely affects you and your property, you have legal recourse in this state. If I do something that is going to harm the state as a whole or the environment, to pollute the air, would put toxins, again, DEQ, EPA. We have a robust governmental system that protects those things. I just get really uncomfortable whether it's, we saw this in the 80s when they started coming after dairy farms. We've seen it with PETA and HSUS come after whether it's the different ways that people grow pigs and pork. We've seen it now, certain groups in Oklahoma with trying to infringe upon the property rights of landowners from putting up windmills or solar farms or oil derricks or gas pipelines. And again, I think that anytime the government, we in Oklahoma City or if the federal government tries to preach down to the locals, I think that's just a recipe for disaster. I think those decisions need to be made as locally as possible. And the most local that decision can ever be made is the person that owns that land and those local landowners. And I just think it's a key fundamental right in the United States is the right to, that your property is yours.
Great points. And I do know I've heard from others that are south of us, but pretty much everything south of us, Josh, pretty much can't go anywhere. You have to go south or you have to go west or southwest. Yep. So we're so far north. But other counties were looking at how this actual vote in Craig County was going to turn out.
How is that vote going?
Oh, it's
81% against.
It's down further from that now since it's refreshed. So
okay, even further now.
So
the Farm Bureau came out against it, and a lot of agriculture came out against it.
Oh, for sure. I mean, because here's the thing: is we've been fighting those fights. Josh has fought them in the chicken industry. People like the Sullivan family and the Whites and the McMahons in Comanche County, back in my neck of the woods. The Van Landinghams, second largest dairy in the state of Oklahoma. The Van Landings, they fought it in Holland, in the Netherlands, and moved to Tillman County 45, 50 years ago because they were getting told they couldn't raise dairy cattle. And we saw that in Comanche County in the 80s. I'm just always going to stand on the right of the property owner as long as they do not adversely affect their neighbors and harm their neighbors. It's your property. And I think that's a key fundamental American right.
Hey, Trey, here's an update on that. House District 45. That's Annie Mins. She's an incumbent.
No, 45 is Watson.
No, I'm
talking
Mins
about Watson.
Mins is incumbent. Yeah. So that's Mins is leading right now, 52.68% to 43.8. So she's got right at 8,000 votes to 66.55. The 46, the District 46, which is the incumbent Jacob Rosenkrantz, is a Democrat from Norman area. He's currently at 53.67% to 46.33 with 11 of 16. That's actually a lot closer than I thought it was.
So
gonna
we're
be.
seeing a little bit of tightening from the last round of data drops, but still, I think both incumbents are still so far in a healthy margin. I think another race to point out right now is District 100 with Marilyn Stark in Western Oklahoma County. We're seeing about 15% of Election Day precincts reporting, and she is currently down by 55 votes. So right at 1% down to the Democrat Gilmore.
And then back to District 62. That's the Daniel Pay district, Lawton area. He is up 53.5% to 46.5. So he's right at 3,100 votes versus 2,700.
And so I'll tell you, another data dump just happened. State Representative District 95. This literally happened while Josh was talking. Max Woofley finally took the lead for the first time of the night. 41% reporting. He just had a precinct come in that moved him from 49% to 51%. So he's back in front now. That race, I think, will go down to the wire here in Oklahoma County.
Suzanne Schreiber, she's Carol Bush's former district in Tulsa, or Midtown Tulsa, District 70. She is currently up with 3 precincts reporting of 18. She's up 60% to 40%, which you figured she was, I didn't think that would go anyway other than that, honestly. Mark Van Kuren, a colleague from the Owasso area, he's up 76% to 24%, 3 precincts reporting. So I think the Owasso, that area, Owasso is pretty much Tulsa now. That area has grown so much. Huge area. And maybe some of those Tulsa precincts will start coming in now.
I see our buddy and our colleague here, someone you may have heard of him, Trey Caldwell from Lawton, Oklahoma, is up 82% right now. Congratulations, Trey.
You say that, and the KSWO is calling. I'm going to go hop off and do an interview for the local TV station.
Colin Doyle can come up here and jump in your spot. He can earn his keep. We got Eric Roberts here, District 83. Still just 1 precinct reporting. He's up 52.26 to 47.
And Josh, we're having the friendly debate earlier about whether it would be 76 or 77 counties that President Trump carried this year in Oklahoma. Currently in Oklahoma County, with 30% of the Election Day precincts in, Kamala Harris is ahead by 9 points.
Really?
Yep.
So I'd be interested to see the data from 20 at this point where it was at. I mean, I think that's probably a big difference than it was 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Tammy West, colleague of ours here, District 84. She's near Oklahoma City. So it's everything around Oklahoma City. I just call it Oklahoma City. So I think Tammy's, what is that area she lives in? Deer Creek area, I think. There are three precincts reporting out of 15. She's at 57.22 to 42.78. So still another 12 precincts to come in with that.
Newcomer to the Oklahoma City area, District 90, who's taking majority floor leader John Eccles' spot. Emily Geis is up 62% with 6 of 12 precincts reporting. She's going to be a firecracker. She's really good, very knowledgeable, very intelligent, good person to work with.
Emily's she's well-spoken, well-tempered. She beat the floor leader, John Eccles' brother, who was on the ballot in the primary. And so it tells you about her work ethic. She had to work against a huge name recognition. And, we've spent a lot of time with Emily. She's going to be a great member. We've got a lot of strong members coming in this freshman class. Don't know about with Cindy's caucus on the Democrat side, but as far as the Republicans coming in, like I said, we could have up to 15. We're going to have 14 for sure, I believe. But we got some strong leaders coming in. Cindy Munson, speaking of the minority leader, District 85, with 4 of 18 reporting. She's up with 5,233 votes to 31.62. So she's got a good lead, 62.3% to 37.6%. So David Hardin, he's down by me. As mentioned, they actually called his race, but 24 of 30 reporting, 77.64 to 22.36.
The 2 Cleveland County races, each of them have 1 precinct remaining, and I think it's pretty clear that both Representative Menz and Representative Rosecrans will be returning with pretty healthy margins.
So there's the District 88, which is former Representative Dunnington. He lost that. It was kind of a crazy year, 2020. He lost that. Representative Turner, who is outgoing. That's just right here in the Paseo area.
Yep.
There's 7 of 15 precincts reporting. Ellen Pogmiller is up 78.5 to 21.5 with the Democrat Bobby McCollum, an independent Bobby McCollum running. So we're starting to see some of the urban districts here, their numbers report in. You did mention Geis, the 6 of 12 precincts reporting. She's got a big lead. Annie Fugate, District 94. So Annie Fugate replaced, I think that was Scott's, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's Scott's seat.
That was, yeah. That right there, he's just got one precinct reporting. So when I came in, Inman was in his last 2 years, and I'll tell you from just watching the floor, no one knew the rules better than Inman, and no one knew, he had his debates timed down to the very last second. I remember it was my first session, probably the first 2 weeks of actually, once you get bills were running through committees, we had stuff on the floors to vote on, and it was, I forget what the bill was that was running, but he was crying in his debate. And I sat on the back row, and he walked past me and he winked at how'd I do? And I said, "Dadgum, man, this guy's good." And he was good.
That's really sad.
Well, so I remember talking to Eccles. Eccles is leaving, but Eccles was a 5-year, just started his 5th year as floor leader. It was a brand new floor leader, and he had to get smart real quick because you had Inman, you had Proctor, you had Corey Williams, you had a bunch of senior members that knew the rules. And on that House chamber, if you know the rules, then that it behooves you to study and know the rules, because you know how to counter the opposition. And we dealt with a $750 million shortfall my first year, $1.2 billion shortfall my second year. I remember when we sine-died out of my first session, within a week, the governor found to put us in a special session. And so we went through, I pretty much spent 18 months here at the Capitol, went through back-to-back special sessions, concurrent sessions. And it was a trying time. I told Eccles, I said, I'm kind of jealous of you, because you, at 5 years as floor leader, you had to figure it out real quick, because you look stupid real fast on that House floor. Obviously trying times. We had teacher walkout at the same time. And so looking back with my class, we got real tight. We were freshmen, didn't have a whole lot of responsibility, and we spent a lot of time up here together. And, there's nothing that I'm going to see in this chamber that we haven't already seen. I think that getting thrown into the fire real early, as much as it wasn't fun, I appreciate every experience that we've had up here. So as Trey mentioned on our last podcast here a couple of weeks ago, that this is the most tenured legislature we've had since term limits. Since your class was the first class to come in after term limits, right. It was passed on the ballot, I believe, in 1992. And so, that you were the first class to come in with term limits. And since the 04 class, this is the most senior class, or the most tenured legislature. So I don't know. It's I've got mixed feelings on when you talk about term limits. It was done on the ballot. The people passed it. I do see in this, when you walk the rotunda, when you're in session, you see a lot of former members and that are now lobbyists or they're agency heads, and so you lose every 12 years. I mean, I came in with 37 total members. There were 28 members in my caucus in the class of 16, and the class of 18, which is Trey's class, you had 47 total members with 38 Republicans, and Kennedy and Wallace, that class there, that's Pfeiffer is one of them, they're terming out, but we had 90% of the legislature been here 5 years or less. And so I wouldn't be here without term limits, but as I've been here, I've seen the institutional knowledge that leaves this building every 12 years specifically is a lot.
What I think's surprising for a lot of folks that is their expectations of what would happen to legislative turnover once term limits took effect is how often we have individuals that retire before they reach term limits. And you actually look at the numbers, and oftentimes your length of stay is with those term limit individuals. It's it's less, and theories on that probably with, you kind of get to a point in your legislative career, or you're going to be able to be speaker and kind
Yeah.
of those positions. And then maybe it's a time just to.
Well, you came in 2004, so that was the year that the Republicans took the House.
Right. Yeah.
Did that have anything to do with you deciding to, just do 2 terms?
No, I got 2.5 terms, and I had an opportunity to serve in President Obama's administration with the USDA rural development position, something I was very passionate about.
So that's what I think. Scott Biggs, I think he was a former member. I think he did that under Trump, I believe.
Yep,
yeah.
for FSA. Yep.
So,
Yeah, so
you're an
those
ag guy, and you had a chance to go work with the agriculture community.
Yeah. And so it was, as much as I love being state representative and love Southwest Oklahoma, that was a tough offer to be able to pass up.
Did you, do you have any regrets about, making the jump or your time here? I mean,
I don't. I mean, as I reflect back on, my 5 years that I served here, I suppose we were elected in 2004, and as you said, it was when Republicans first took the majority, and it was a highly contentious partisan environment, and the margins were far more narrow. I think there were 7 seats that separated the majority from the minority, with lots of senior members who had known nothing but being part of the majority party, and it was if as far as regrets that I have is that kind of recognizing how the electoral map was going to shift, how Republicans would continue to gain seats, probably trying to find a way to be more collaborative in those early years. And again, everybody was just trying to figure out their new roles and trying to figure out how to play nice with each other.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But,
I was talking to Brian Bingman, who's on the ballot for corporation commissioner, as we mentioned. He talked about his first year in the state Senate. It was a deadlock. It was 24 and 24.
Yeah.
So you had 2 pro tems in the Senate, and you had 2 chairs for every committee. You had a Republican chair and a Democrat chair. You had a Democrat pro tem and a Republican pro tem. And he's like, honestly, we got a lot of stuff done, but we had no choice but to work together. So.
Don't let me interrupt, guys.
No, you're good.
You may have already covered this before I got up here, but it looks like West Virginia flipped in the Senate. So the Senate did pick up a Republican on the national level.
I'll tell you another thing. We just kind of breaking. I was sitting there kind of reviewing precinct 64 with Randy Worthen's seat in Lawton. Right now, there's 1, 2, 3. There's 5 precincts left, and one of those is traditionally a Republican precinct, especially if you consider early voting. The other 4 are, the other 4 are Democrat seats, or Democrat precincts. And currently, Randy Worthen is sitting with a slight lead of about 200.
That was my phone. Yeah, it's real time. We're live. I was
Josh is always trying to make sure our viewership numbers are up by watching.
I was checking results, and it flipped over to YouTube.
Wouldn't hear self-talk.
Yeah.
Is that what it was?
Yeah. So Randy Worthen is currently with about a 250 vote lead in that race. So I think that race continues to tighten as the last 5 precincts come in. I think another race that we were following earlier that's kind of 25% reporting is Melissa Provenzano up in Tulsa. She is currently winning by about 10 percentage points. Those margins are holding pretty consistent as results come in. That is House District 79.
Just got a text from our colleague, Representative Mark Lawson. He's our colleague, Marilyn Stark, Representative Stark. She's got pollsters. She's got people out in the precincts. And so she is from Representative Stark showing that she won by 1%.
She ends up winning. So they had precinct runners.
She had precinct runners. Said it's coming from Stark. She won 1%, 287 votes.
So she's going to end up winning.
Close.
Marilyn Stark is going to come back, and Western Oklahoma County is going to end up winning by about 1% of the votes, 200 and something votes. That's coming from her staffers that are precinct running. And just for our viewers, some of you may know this, some of you may not. A lot of these precincts, when they get done, and especially in rural areas or even in urban areas, they post the ticker tape on the outside door. And so from the time that they tabulate that up there at the actual precinct till it gets sent back to the central reporting location, can take some time, anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour before it gets populated in the state website. And so a lot of, I've always done this in every race I've ever had, is I have precinct runners that go to all 30 of my precincts traditionally, and we will know normally 10 to 15 minutes after the polls close, somewhere around 7:15 to 7:20.
Well, your precincts are going to print them out and put them on and
They
tape them to the door.
They tape them on
Yeah.
the door, and so you can run by, you can grab a photo of
Yeah.
it. So that's good.
So Supreme Court, the judicial retention ballot. So it's tightening up here. So for that Supreme Court District 3, it's 49.28 for retention and 50.72 in the nay. And then they're running pretty much almost identical across the board here for the Senate. The Supreme Court District 4, it's 48.69 for retention, 51.31 on the no vote. And then the actual Supreme Court District 7, the yes for retention has actually, for the first time all night that I've seen, they are up now with 50.09% to 49.91. There's 428 out of the 1,984 precincts across the state reporting. So that was an interesting change. I think that's going to probably teeter back and forth for the remainder of the time that it takes the rest of the precincts to get in. And we're still waiting on the big. Well, I would say if I were on the Supreme Court right now, if I were on that retention ballot, the precincts that we're waiting to come in are the Oklahoma City and Tulsa precincts, and I would say that those will probably, if I had to guess, those will probably be heavy in favor of retention. So,
Yeah.
So still nothing new in Comanche County.
I want to do a quick update on some of these U.S. Senate races
be awesome.
that I'm keeping an eye on. Again, Sherrod Brown, incumbent Democratic U.S. Senator from Ohio, 60% of the vote in Ohio. Senator Brown's down by 3.5 percentage points. Other races in Maryland, they've got an open U.S. Senate race. The former Republican governor, Governor Hogan, who kind of made a name for himself as kind of the ultimate anti-Trump Republican. Pretty good moderate credentials in Maryland. Potential of making a pretty competitive race, but right now he's trailing by 10 percentage points. The last I saw in Virginia with incumbent U.S. Senator Tim Kaine, I think Democrats felt pretty comfortable about him winning by a few percentage points. He was up 2% with something like 50% reporting. Pennsylvania numbers are still only 27% reporting in Pennsylvania, but incumbent U.S. Senator Bob Casey is leading his opponent by about 11 percentage points. That no doubt will get much tighter as the evening goes by. Clearly, Democratic areas of Pennsylvania reporting much earlier than Republican areas, because that'll be a competitive race. Michigan U.S. Senate race, open U.S. Senate race to replace Senator Stabenow. Congresswoman Alyssa Slotkin is leading former Congressman Mike Rogers in Michigan. So that's what I've got on the U.S. Senate.
That's awesome. We had another little data dump on the state side. Daniel Pay in Lawton District 62 is pulling farther ahead. He's currently looking at 57%. And then Randy Worthen still maintaining about a 6-point lead. That race is continuing to tighten. I think will continue to tighten. It's just seeing the precincts and knowing the precincts that are still yet to come in. We just had precinct 33 drop, and that came in for challenger Tom Sutherland. So we have about 3 or 4 Democrat precincts left, and traditionally 1 Republican precinct left. So it'd be very interesting to see how that ends up shaking out once we get more data. I'm really curious. That only has 14 precincts in Eastern Comanche County. I wish we may start texting some people and see if we can get some results. Also, Marilyn Stark, we touched on that. That race is called by her staff. Annie Mins in State Representative District 45 is going to come back to the legislature. She ended up winning by 8 percentage points, 52 to 44. Challenger Matt Watson ended up with 7,100 votes approximately, and Representative Mins with right at 8,500 votes. We stay in Cleveland County. This one is all 16 precincts reporting. Jacob Rosekrantz from Norman will come back for what I believe will be his 4th or 5th term. He won essentially 54 to 46%, or about 9,000 votes to 10,500. Still one precinct left to report in Representative Pay's District 62, 64, same place where we were just a second ago. Okay, State Representative District 79, which is again is Melissa Provenzano. She's about 33% reporting, and she has about an 11 percentage point lead as of right now. Max Wolfley looks about 60% of precincts reporting. His lead has actually swelled up to about an 11 percentage point lead. And the Supreme Court District 3, that continues to tighten. They're down about, the yes vote is down about 4,000 votes. District 4, much more substantial, being down about 25,000 votes. And District 7, which is Edmondson, has pulled ahead and now is up by about 2,500 votes. And I don't know about the state questions.
We have a
Senate
few
District
here from-
47. I don't know that
Yeah.
you mentioned competitive open seat, Northern Oklahoma County, Republican Kelly Hines, 52.4% to Aaron Brewer's 47.6%, with again 50% of the precincts reporting. Race with two very strong candidates, both Democrats and Republicans very much like their candidates in those races, but again, 50% more of the precinct and highly competitive race up there.
Trey, the two representatives that came in 2020 when I did from District 1, the Will Rogers of the Oklahoma House of Representatives, Mr. Eddie Dempsey, Representative Dempsey from Valiant, comes in at 86%. And also, I think previously mentioned from the great city of Tahlequah, All-American for the University of Oklahoma football team, who played under Barry Switzer, Representative Bob Ed Culver comes in at 67%. So both of those will be returning from the 2020 class.
We just had a Senate colleague text, and so we haven't seen the numbers yet. This is coming from a Senate colleague, like I said, but said that both Rader and Hines have won. So we'll see what those as those come in. But those are from a Senate colleague that had runners out at the precinct. So. Let's see. Let's look at the president here. So we've got 1,538 out of the 1,984 precincts reporting. So we're right at almost 78% precincts reporting. Donald Trump is up 67.55 to 30.63. So not much change in those numbers that have been coming in.
For U.S. Congress, we probably won't know who controls Congress for at least another week or so. But thus far, with the current 4-seat majority for the Republicans, the Dems have gained 1 seat, and so they're narrowing those margins. But there'll be plenty more results to go for that.
Just got another text that said, based off of their precinct runners, that Hines has won that Senate district as well. From another colleague, I don't know if Mark Lawson's reporting that Pay has won that as well.
Daniel Pay's won.
Said that his opponent called to concede. So,
yeah, Pay's up with 10% left to be reported. there's not even enough votes out there to make up the difference. So,
So the Senator Rob Standridge, who termed out, his wife Elisa, with one precinct remaining, she's up 61.55 to 38.45. So it looks like the Standridges will, for their namesake, they'll be remain in the Senate.
One of our colleagues, we just received a text from Speaker Designate Kyle Hilbert. Lonnie Sims, a colleague of ours, is trailing just barely 48 to 52 in his county commissioner race.
Tulsa County Commissioner.
Yeah, Lonnie was my office mate for 4 years, decided to stay home, stay in the Jinx area, Tulsa area, and decided to run for a county commissioner. So he's right there on the verge of doing so.
2 Senate districts, the Tulsa area. One was from Senator Newhouse. He left. That's Senate District 25. And it looks like they still got several precincts left. But right now you got Brian Guthrie. He is up 64.6%. And then that Senate District 33, that's the Senate District that Nathan Dahm is leaving. You've got Christy Gillespie. She's up 63.66% to
Current
36.
Vice Mayor, Broken Arrow.
Vice Mayor Broken Arrow.
Super
yep.
nice person.
And while we're in Tulsa, I just took a look at the Tulsa mayor race, and with 36% reporting in Tulsa, Monroe Nichols has a 15-point lead over Karen Keith.
Another colleague of ours.
Wow.
Yeah, that jumped from the last time. So
Pretty good football player, too, from the University of Tulsa, from
Absolutely.
what I recall. I think he played for Senator Rader.
He
That's
did.
the case.
Coach Rader.
Coach Rader.
I spent many years going to his football camps.
Not bad. Well, I grew up in Muskogee, so not knowing who Coach Rader was, that's pretty much a sin.
That was before, when was he at UT or TU, whatever?
UT.
they-
80s and 90s. I mean,
Right.
I graduated high school in 95, and I went and he was the coach when I was in high school. So. Let's look at the judicial retention ballot again. That was interesting. The last number, it's kind of teetering back and forth. So we're still about the same. Is that the 7?
Yeah.
So
Edmondson's pulled ahead by about 25,000 votes. Or no, excuse me, 25.
that's that Supreme Court District 7. Yeah, so 50.13% to 49. He gained a little bit of traction off the last one. The Supreme Court District 4 and 3, they're both teetering right at 48, 49% for retention. So like I said, I would bet that all 3 will be retained. So we're just waiting on the urban precincts out of Tulsa County and Oklahoma County.
Presidential race in Oklahoma County. Kamala Harris continues with a 6 percentage point lead with 53% reporting.
So some news up where Bayshore and I are from, Cleora, Delaware County, little town on the lake there. They had a proposition on the ballot to incorporate, and they passed, coming from one of my county commissioners said that they passed to incorporate up there in Cleora.
I think one thing that's interesting for some of our viewers from back in my neck of the woods, Michael Merritt has a pretty substantial lead in Comanche County as the next Comanche County sheriff. He is, if this result continues to hold with only 4 precincts left with a 4,800 vote lead, we'll see him replace the longest serving sheriff in the history of the state of Oklahoma, which was Kenny Stradley. Kenny's been sheriff longer than I've been alive.
And didn't you honor him on the House floor this
I
year?
did.
thought you
It was a great
Super,
honor to
yeah.
have him.
Great person.
Great guy. Just from pure politics point of view, it always helps for your reelection when you get shot during your campaign and survive. So Sheriff Stradley was wounded in action when he was, I think, just a regular police officer at Lawton Police Department, but he's served Southwest Oklahoma, but specifically Comanche County for going on 37 years now, and great day. And we're going to see a transition. Also, just then, Randy Worthen is going to be the victor in State Representative District 64. He's going to end up with 5,400 votes to 4,600 votes. Going to end up winning by about 7%. So I know Randy's been working really hard down there, and that's good to see that number kind of.
Looks like Mark Chapman replacing Kevin McDougal. They're about to call that. There's 15 to 16 precincts reporting. He's 78.79%. So Fed Getter, he is well on his way. He's 26 of 31 reporting, 71%.
So it's feeling like House numbers are probably going to stay the same.
Yep.
Yep.
I'd say it's going to be across
There's not
the
going
board.
to be any flips.
No.
I think the really the most vulnerable Democrat would have been District 45.
Yeah.
And then the three Republicans that were vulnerable were Wolfley, Worthen, and
Start.
And it seems like everybody's kind of held served. The Democrats protected their incumbents, and the Republican majority protected their three incumbents as well. So I think we're going to basically run it back when it comes to supermajority here in the state of Oklahoma.
Ken Luttrell. Ken Luttrell pulled big numbers tonight. This is his final reelection. He was a former member.
Did you serve with Kim?
Did you serve with Kim?
Yeah. He was my seatmate.
Yeah. So he came back in 2018, and he will term out with this class of 2014. And will be leaving here in the next 2 years.
I don't know if you knew this, but he was a great boxer.
Oh, I knew.
He's known on the floor as the fighting pride of Ponca City.
Yeah. Yeah.
Plus relations, right? Aren't you related to Ken?
Well, Shirtel cousins. Yeah, I got a lot of people. When Ken first came back in 2018, there was a reception for the freshmen. So over at the History Center, and I heard him talking about something about Grand Lake, and he was a mile and a half south of Hunter Creek Bridge. And I said, "You talking about Jimmy Cottle's place?" And he said, "Yeah, Jimmy's my cousin." I said, "Well, Jimmy's my cousin too." And so we're all intertwined. He's a good person, good guy.
Absolutely.
I see Denise Crosswhite Hayter. She is up 68% to 32 with 3 precincts remaining there.
Interesting for Oklahoma County, those interested in the sheriff's race. Current Sheriff Tommy Johnson is at 55% with 162 of 290 precincts reporting. So he's roughly at 56% leading right now.
Wow. So he's outperforming Trump by about 10 points in Oklahoma County.
Jay Stiegel, District 43. So he's Yukon area. 1 precinct remaining, 70 to 30.
Max Wolfley still in District 95, still holding about a 9-point lead. His lead has continued to grow as the more and more election day totals come in. Still 66% to go.
So both the Norman seats have
They're finished.
full reporting out.
Yeah.
So
Men's and Rosecrans both will be coming back.
a lot coming in, a lot of done. That's a good thing about Oklahoma. We usually know as far as the House and the state Senate. We'll know before 10 o'clock typically every year. So,
yeah, we not particularly competitive, but noteworthy. Minority Leader Cindy Munson,
Comanche County girl.
Yeah,
Southwest Oklahoma,
cruising to re-election pretty easily. 78% of the precincts reporting, 61% to 38%.
I see the AP just called Vice.
I just had an announcement out of Tulsa from all the runners. Coach Rader will win. He will come back. He won by 11 points.
Good for Coach.
Yep.
That was a highly contested race, and there's a lot of TV ads out there, a lot of negative TV ads. I know that the Senate leadership, incoming leadership was one that really paid attention to.
Somebody may not.
Yeah,
he actually played in the NFL too.
I don't know that
I didn't realize
Democrats expected to win that race, but it's certainly the numbers are competitive enough that they'll take a shot.
Well, yeah,
at
I
it
kind of
every
laugh
time.
when I seen the junk out there that was on there, like we talked about earlier. The stuff that was coming out on the commercials. If you knew Coach Rader, then you knew that was pure junk. So
Do you know Coach Rader played for the Giants?
Did not. I know he was.
1979.
He's a heck of a quarterback coach.
He is. He was 10 years at TU, then went on to Alabama to be the OC and QB coach. And 2010 was his last year at Ole Miss. What a great career that man's had. And then he's carried it over into public service.
Yeah, there's a classmate of mine. He graduated a year ahead of me, Brian Paul, and he played for Coach Rader. And his son has came up and paged for me his junior and senior year. And so, we would have to go across the rotunda and see Coach Rader so I could get a picture with him for his dad.
Continuing to keep an eye on the Supreme Court retention ballots, and statewide, we're up to 82.5% of the precincts reporting. Edmondson is the one Supreme Court justice that is winning retention by a 0.5 percentage point. Justice Cogger is losing retention by about 1.5 points, and just of course. The other justice is down by about 1 percentage point.
And one thing that's really interesting on that, Ryan, I have the map of the state and pulled up, and it's really almost like a hotspot map. So you have this one specifically is for Edmondson. But it looks like the metropolitan areas, by and large, have been more towards the yes camp, while more of rural Oklahoma has went no. Everything from crazy numbers from on the yes at 30% versus 70% out in Cimarron County, Delaware County or Adair County. It's relatively close everywhere. Cleveland County just had some posted, and the yes pulled ahead on that. So I think at the end of the day, we're probably going to see with all the no counties have essentially been reported. My assumption is that at least Edmondson out of the three probably has a decent chance at being retained. The other two have a much higher uphill battle to go.
I think the opposite. I think we're waiting on the Tulsa County and Oklahoma County votes, and I think they tend to
go yes.
Will tend to go yes. Yeah.
Right. So they will. That's why it's breaking down right now. I mean, right now with Tulsa about 50% reporting. Tulsa is running up about a 10% margin on the yes. Payne County 10% margin. Oklahoma County a 20% margin. Cleveland County 10%. Comanche County right at 17%. Here's a rural county that'll shock you. Back home in my neck of the woods, Tillman County, one of the true and Muskogee County. So Tillman County is the only rural western Oklahoma county that actually voted for yes in retention for Edmondson specifically. I don't have it pulled up for the rest of them, but I think it's something to watch as the night goes on and we see more and more of those votes come in. Gurich is down about 12,000 votes in raw numbers. And then what's the other one? Cogger is down by 25,000 real number votes. I'm curious to see if there's that many votes out there left to kind of pull them over the top at a 10% clip, even if they're coming out of the two population counties. That'd be something definitely to watch as the night continues to go deeper.
Did you talk earlier about the U.S. Senate races across you said we picked up on what state was that? We picked up
West Virginia. They called West Virginia. That is former Senator Manchin's seat. Jim Justice ended up beating Glenn Elliott. If you kind of look at some of the federal super PAC money and the resources, the Democrats, it's my understanding, kind of pulled out of that one to more focused on Montana with Tester and Brown in Ohio. And I think Michigan was an open seat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Michigan was Michigan was an open seat. You also had Tammy Baldwin in Wisconsin, which is always going to be tough. And so I think they pulled out of West Virginia and kind of punted. And
really felt like their Hail Marys in Texas and Florida were going to.
Some interesting information, guys, that I just saw from the congressional districts. Up those seats that were up are CD 2, 4, and 5. Congressional District 2 is where Josh and I are from on the eastern side of the state. 309,000 votes cast in that specific race. 278,000 cast for CD 4 and 262,000 in CD 5, which shows CD 2, our area, eastern side of the state, had more voters turn out for the congressional races, which is
Mm-hmm.
interesting. I didn't expect that. I figured the Tom Cole area would probably pull more
No.
You know,
voters because it's more urban.
I'll tell you something that I noticed in the last the state senate race. Comanche County here lately we haven't seen the turnout numbers that we traditionally saw. We've had a lot more apathy, and that's something that we've city leaders and people have talked about. I mean, we have that state senate district that's essentially a 50-50 district with eastern Comanche County and all of a large line share of Stevens County, and then going down into Jefferson and Cotton County as well. That'll be held by Senator-elect Spencer Kern. But I just remember that talk where, you had a county that's way smaller. I think that our percentage-wise, we didn't turn out then, and I think we're kind of seeing that same kind of thing in CD4 versus 2.
So looking at the AP map on a national level on the presidential side, here you've got AP's calling right now. If you're looking at electoral vote count, we got 178 for Trump and 99 for Harris. So right now we're looking at the states that they've called for Trump. You've got North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Wyoming, and then Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, and all over the South: Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, South Carolina, Florida, West Virginia, Ohio, and Indiana. Those have all been called for Trump. For Harris at this point, you've got Illinois, New York, Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Jersey, Delaware, and Maryland. I just hope that we're not waiting. I hope in the next 2 days that we know who's got the votes.
Yeah,
I know that
I
Congress may be a different thing.
And again, the function of elections is something that is reserved to the states. I think
Yeah.
there's no doubt about that. When it comes to that, but there really is no reason why other states can't do what Oklahoma and Florida does. I mean, here we are in Florida. If you go pull up Florida on the national map, and they have 94% of the votes in 2 hours later. I mean, that's a large state. It's not. I mean, you're talking 10 million votes in Florida today. Being able to count those votes quick. Same thing in Oklahoma. We about midnight, with the exception of some provisionals and some undervotes and maybe a couple of the counties that have had technical difficulties. But and I think one of the things that people don't realize is, like, you take Pennsylvania, for example. Pennsylvania, they can't even start counting the early votes, absentee votes, mail-in votes. They can't even start counting them until polls close. And so what that does, it just pushes that out, which, in my opinion, leaves open the possibility of people crying foul. And I think that we have a very robust and great country. I think the one thing we should be able to do is get all the votes counted in a day. But again, that goes back to that local control and that those powers that are reserved for the states and in elections. And at the same point in time, we don't want people telling us how to do elections in Oklahoma. So you kind of have to respect those other states that they don't want us telling us, a bunch of Okies, telling them how to run elections. But I will say this. If you look at Oklahoma election and our process, it's very, very good when compared to other states. I think it puts us right up there with Florida and Oklahoma. I think are two of the best states that get it done.
Right now, we're looking at the U.S. Senate races. Republicans are looking at 46. They gained one seat, the same one. So it's still the same, I guess, 46, 36.
Yeah, so, and the big ones there are going to be, is looking right now that this Wisconsin, Tammy Baldwin versus Eric Hoved, that race is tightening as we speak. Michigan looks like Slocum is going to probably be fine versus Mike Rogers. It looks like incumbent Sheridan Brown.
Yeah.
On the House side, we've gained a seat. That kind of
He's in
surprised
deep
me.
water.
We've gained a seat so far on the U.S. House side.
Really?
So we're sitting at
what it is?
111 to 78 right now.
I'm showing 96-74.
I'm just refreshed right now, and that's
you see the Pennsylvania 7th right now with 45% reporting. Ryan McKenzie is up on incumbent Susan Wild. A seat that I was kind of watching from afar, and it is a dead heat. Rebecca Cook versus incumbent Derek Van Orton. Democrat challenger Rebecca Cook is up by 7 votes right now out of 120,000 votes with 28% reporting. Another race that I'm very interested to see is it's a rematch from 2022 between Marie Perez, a Democrat in the Washington 3rd, which is Southwest Washington, and Joe Kent. Joe Kent was the incumbent 2 years ago. Marie Perez, she Glusenkamp Perez. I always butcher her name, but she challenged him 2 years ago. Joe is running for that seat back. I think that'll be pretty telling. I think that'll be kind of an indicator what that rural area of the Pacific Northwest kind of goes towards Trump and what kind of margins Trump will lose by in Washington. But see if he kind of makes it competitive there.
On the Electoral College front, one of the really interesting stories that came out from this weekend was kind of a surprise poll in the Des Moines Register that showed
and
Kamala
Seltzer's.
Harris, and Seltzer, that Kamala Harris was leading by 3 in Iowa. This was not a state that was on anybody's battleground. Folks had just kind of assumed that it had moved to a reliably red state. Poll that was released this week from a very reputable pollster saw that Harris was leading by 3 in Iowa right now with 33% reporting. Harris is leading by a percentage point in Iowa. So I don't know that too many people expect at the end of the day that Harris will carry Iowa, but clearly what we're seeing so far is that Seltzer was picking up something in that poll.
If there's a reason, what would you say it is if she does carry Iowa? What do you think that was that thing that would push her over?
What the poll showed was that older white voters had moved away from Trump, and it was often higher income, higher educated voters, similar to what we've seen in lots of suburbs. But what was different in Iowa is what you were seeing that in rural areas as well.
Yeah,
I would say that. So even, in our elections, when you're sending out mailers, I remember one year I think it was my 2018 election, a re-election. I remember I would say every other piece, my consultant would have Trump on there, right? He was polling at 90-some% in my district at the time. But I remember when I went after the election, I went and checked my PO box where the mailers, the address that was on the mailers, and I can't tell you how many that got mailed back to me from Republican voters, and they were that World War II generation. And they had some comments on there that, like, you have daughters, I can't. So they were offended at the time. They felt like the way he talked to women and things like that. So that was a turnoff for that generation. I think that that generation that was taught to. They just felt like he didn't live up to how you're supposed to treat women. So I can see how, to your point, I can see how that would. That could be an issue.
I think one thing's pretty interesting. You look at Iowa now. Let's see, pull it back up. Vice President Harris is currently leading. I say that, and then Trump just pulled ahead. You're starting to see some of these Republican counties come in. But, there's little blue dots across the 100 counties, or 99, 97 counties. How many counties are in Iowa? But it's not just in Cedar Rapids. It's not just in Des Moines or Sioux City. It's kind of spread out across the state where some of these bluer dots are, and we'll see if that holds through the night. Yeah. I do think that's right, though. I mean, and I think too, even if Seltzer is wrong on the pay, and Seltzer's a renowned pollster. That doesn't necessarily buy into herding. That's her whole thing has always been similar to a Chris Wilson in 2016 when he broke from the herd and said, no, this is what I think. Ann's going to follow the data, and her data, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent. But I think the underlying thing that a lot of Republicans have lost sleep over is what does that leading candidate, what does that lead to Michigan, Wisconsin, if you're starting to see elderly white women above 40 break 2-1 for Harris, as opposed to being a traditional 50-50 population base. What does that do in these races that are super, super tight, these battleground states? And that could be the shift and change. And then what is the core fundamental reason of that? And it probably centers around the overturn of Roe with the Dobbs decision. And it probably stems to some of the rhetoric by former President Trump, I think, is at least what we're hearing, why those people that traditionally would probably move more Republican have started to shift.
Have you talked about the U.S. Senate race in Ohio right now?
Yeah,
Okay, I figured you did where I was going, but that's
That's
Bernie's lead is getting higher.
it's shocking. I think that certainly Sherrod Brown has he just developed this reputation as even as Ohio has continued to move to the right, just kind of his working class credentials and being so supported by organized labor. But in this presidential election, we've seen that labor coalition fracture in ways that a lot of us never thought was possible, and not exactly sure who in Ohio is moving away from Brown, but you'd have to assume that that working class coalition that he's built his political career on just
So
has fractured
so when you're
tonight.
talking about unions, so I know. Let's just talk about.
Because Brown was okay, kind of Kasich type model guy. Have you kind of take over that?
Yeah,
I mean, I know obviously he's
yeah.
a Democrat, but that working class,
Yeah, oh, very much so.
Eastern Ohio,
Mhm.
Steel mill workers.
Yeah.
Well, so obviously we have. I've got a family member union is a lineman. But when I talked to him about it, he's like his colleagues that he works with, they're super red. Most of them are. I mean, it's about as far right as you can go. If you look at the union bosses up top, they're typically not, and so it's weird to see in Oklahoma, a super red state, to see as many people. You wouldn't think there'd be that many people in a union, but they're mostly Republicans, honestly. And so it's kind of shifted. Back in the day when you were in office,
Mhm.
I would say that it was frowned upon to have any relationships as a Republican with unions. I mean, and I think as we look forward today, because there are so many Republicans that are in unions, it's taken on it's looked at a different way, I guess. I mean, maybe it's hypocritical, but
Yeah. And so, and I think that's probably resulted in perhaps Republicans on the state level being a little bit more friendly to organized labor issues at times. What's interesting is on the presidential level, with former President Trump,
yeah.
while he has cultural connections to a lot of union members, his policy, his agenda has not been friendly to organized labor, and so it's clearly a lot of labor members that are siding with that cultural affiliation rather than kind of what he's actually done to support organized labor.
I was trying to look up that Pennsylvania U.S. Senate race with Bob Casey and Dave McCormick. And I lost my map. Do you have that one up, Terry?
The which one? Pennsylvania?
The Pennsylvania
Yeah,
U.S.
Casey.
Senate race.
Bob Casey is currently up by about 25,000 votes, which is in Pennsylvania comes out to about a half or right at a percentage point, 9/10 of a percentage point. Basically the margin of the libertarian that's in the race. But David McCormick is down currently with 47% reporting in Pennsylvania. Brown is still down 5 points. That one's getting that one looks like it's almost all over, but the crying. Looks to be that at least Slotkin has about a 5-point lead in Michigan without pulling it up and trying to check on the counties where those votes are coming from. You're seeing, let's see, high level reporting. Detroit's only Wayne County, Oakland County.
You said she's up 5.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she's in Michigan. Harris is up 4, so she's leading.
She's outrunning
She's
Harris.
outrunning
Yeah.
Harris by a point. And in Pennsylvania, Trump is up by 0.8%. So Casey's outperforming Harris by about 2%.
2% outrunning.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think if you look at Michigan, where the lion's shares of a lot of these votes are still to come in, you're looking at in Wayne County, which is where Detroit is. You're only at 1%. Yeah, that's Wayne County, isn't it? Detroit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You're at 1% reporting. That's going to break huge for Slotkin and for Harris. So I think the president and Mike Rogers both have a tough row to hoe in Michigan.
Right now, Republicans currently have with the ones that were not on the ballot, they're sitting at 85 U.S. senators right now.
Right now in Montana, with a very, very light turn, only 2% reporting, incumbent John Tester is actually in fourth place.
Really?
Yeah, behind the Green
The Green
Party. Yeah, Robert Barb is currently beating Sid Dohan of the Libertarians. And then, okay, it just changed.
I'm going to make a bold prediction that he will not end the night in fourth place.
Yeah, John Tester or Tim Sheeny or one of them two are going to win that race for sure.
I think Democrats have, they recognize that Montana's continued to shift to the right. Senator Tester is, outstanding, has been an outstanding U.S. senator as far as being able to weather a rightward moving state and just being having really good agricultural credentials. And I mean, just culturally, you couldn't find a better fit Democrat or Republican for the state of Montana. But the fundamentals of, we're
uphill battle.
Yeah, it's people just don't split tickets the way they used to. And I mean, we're talking about a U.S. senator in Pennsylvania leading the presidential ticket by 2. In Michigan, you've got Congresswoman Slotkin, outperforming by 1 percentage points. I mean, that's the arrow that we've moved into. I mean, when I was first elected in 2004, I outperformed the top of my ticket by 27 points.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, and again, that's what we talked about as far as the nationalizing of politics is that far fewer ticket splitters willing to vote for a local Democrat or Republican while going the other way on the presidential ballot.
And I definitely think a lot of that is the hyperpartisanship. I think the visceralness of politics. Our good friend Jed Strom, always refers it to the other tribe over the hill mentality that modern politics has evolved to, which I don't necessarily think is a healthy thing for our country. I've always said we can disagree, but we don't have to be disagreeable when it comes to different political points of view. One story about John Tester, Senator Tester, that I really appreciated him. This is about maybe 5-6 years ago. I heard him speak somewhere, and he was actually talking about direct congressional appropriations and kind of going against his party and against the Republican leadership at the time, and kind of coming out there. Which I've always been for direct congressional appropriations to a certain limit. We don't need bridges to nowhere, but hospitals need to get built. Mm-hmm. There may need a natural disaster happens, and maybe we do need to build a bridge. And so one thing I've always been I really appreciated about him, and he said it much more eloquently than I'll say tonight, is that who do you think knows what their district needs, whether it's a congressional district, a legislative district, or a Senate state with a senator, someone that has been there, lives there, and puts their name on a ballot and has to answer to the people that send them there, or a random bureaucrat in Washington, D.C. that's 24 years old, because most everybody in D.C. is, late 20s. Some random Democrat, well, where does this bridge need to be? And so I think that we give our politicians a hard time a lot, especially on the federal level. They have full staffs. I know just dealing with Congressman Cole and Congressman Lucas's staff, and my my district overlaps with theirs. Having their staff, the availability, how much they're on the ground, I think is very, very useful. And I encourage all of our listeners, whether it's your state, local representative, or whether it's your congressional or your congressman, reach out to them, have a relationship with them and their staff. And I think it goes a long, long ways to have a more effective, responsive governance in the state.
A couple of calls on the U.S. Senate races. The Democrats have retained U.S. Senate race in Maryland with Democrat Angela Alsobrooks. Had the potential of a competitive race with Governor Hogan there. And they've also called Texas for the reelection for Senator Cruz.
Really? What did you see a number on that?
I
What that
didn't see a
ended up?
number on that.
I think we've seen, talking about the Supreme Court districts, still kind of the way it was earlier. The margins have stayed roughly the same. District 3 is still at basically a 1 point. The no camp is 1 point ahead, which is about 11,000 votes. District 4 being somewhere in that full 2 percentage points, 25,000 votes towards the no side. And then District 7, which is Edmondson, is still holding on to a slight lead. He's bumped that up to approximately 9,000 vote lead. So with 86% in, with looking at the map of where some of these numbers that have yet to be reported, you got 2 more precincts in Comanche County, which is running most of the precincts yet to reporting are going to favor the yes side. So it kind of just, my opinion, looking at it, it looks kind of like it may go, the no campaign may go 2 for 3, knock off maybe 2 of them, maybe. And honestly, in precinct 3, which is Gurich, I think there's still an outside shot that they could come back.
So the AP just, everybody told they just called Emily Geist race, which she had a commanding lead anyways. They're waiting on one
Emily
precinct to
Geist.
come in. So new House member.
Going to be a great new member.
District 90.
She's going to replace
Florida Eccles.
John Eccles, a good friend of all of ours.
Yeah.
My opinion, one of the longest tenured and one of the best Florida leaders the state has ever seen. She had a very tough primary. She kind of shocked the world. She went against the kind of odds-on favorite with shoe leather and grit. Didn't have many resources. The opponent she ran against had close to $150,000 of resources. I think she raised about 10,000, but she wore out about 3 pairs of tennis shoes knocking doors in that district, and it's a relatively geographically small district, so she was able to really get true market penetration in there and kind of shock the world. I know there were a lot of people that were very surprised when she won because the polling was not indicating that Matt was losing, and Emily did a really good job.
So
and ended up
she,
winning.
in her first election, she finished with 66.26% of the vote. So
Yeah, and the
Yeah,
first
true
first general.
A true testament to the Eccles family too, with
Yeah.
Matt and John and
Oh,
the
yeah.
rest.
He
Immediately
turned around and supported her and
Emily
rode
100%.
for the
It was a
brand.
clean campaign. So
So the Republicans
That's the
picked
way it
up
should be.
another
Yeah,
seat in the
100%.
House on the U.S. House. They picked up another seat. So
They did.
that's 2 they picked up tonight. The other sitting at 123.
Where are you following it on Fox or New York Times?
I'm following on AP.
I got 124.
So it must have been 3 then. AP showing 85 to 123. Showing Republicans have gained 2. Same on the
Update
House.
on
We've gained
some
1
U.S.
seat.
Senate races. Senator Casey in Pennsylvania is behind by 1/10 of a point right now. In Michigan, the Democrat Congresswoman Slotkin is leading Mike Rogers by 7 percentage points. In Wisconsin, Democrat Tammy Baldwin, U.S. Senator, leading her opponent by 5 percentage points. And in Arizona, we're heading out west at this hour of night. In Arizona, with 50% of the votes in, the Democrat Ruben Gallega is leading Miss Lake 53 to 45.
AP has called the Representative or Congressman Hearns race. Just seen that flash across Channel 6. Well, we got Representative Kennedy on his way up here to bring a couple friends to come on and talk about the races tonight. He's going to have Larry Brock.
I'll tell you,
and Mark
just
Nelson.
for financial news is so a good friend of mine kind of predicting the outcome of maybe where tonight is headed when it comes to economic performance. Bitcoin just hit an all-time high at 74,000.
Really?
A good friend of mine just messaged me that. He's excited. He's a coiner.
Is that potentially connected to folks' expectations of the presidential
I
election?
think so because
Yeah.
Trump had
Yeah.
went out and talked with one of their conventions, crypto conventions, and has kind of said that there's a certain guy at the FTC that's going to be fired on day one.
Yeah.
That has been kind of antagonistic towards crypto and the decentralization of cryptocurrency. So I think people are seeing that as a leading indicator, maybe.
I think you'll see it. I mean, I work in real estate, obviously, and so we've seen where the market in general has slowed way down. And I think a lot of people are waiting to see how the election results panned out, and a lot of people were worried about interest rates, or they're waiting to see if the interest rates dropped. I mean, I live in an area where it's tourism is a big driver, and there's a lot of cash buyers on the lake, and even on the cash buyer side, we're not working with banks. They were kind of holding their money to see, which for me personally, I'd rather have it. And Grand Lake doesn't lose value, and so I'd rather have it in a piece of property wasn't going to lose value. But they were kind of waiting to see they're waiting to see what the market does.
Yeah.
Interesting
Another-
news out of Tulsa. Tulsa City Mayor, not yet, but Monroe Nichols is ahead 56%.
56.
56% with
He's
94 of
up.
150 reporting.
He's got 56%.
Interesting enough,
Oh.
Monroe has led all night on absentees, early voting, and election day. He's led in every category. What'd you think I said, Trey? I'm
I
sorry.
thought you said he was up 56%. So I thought
Oh,
you were saying that
sorry.
he was winning like 80.
Well, it depends on how you look at it.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. Okay, I'm tracking now.
We make
I was going to
percentages
say
and
that is a
statistics.
shocker.
Interesting race out of Nebraska. Incumbent U.S. Senator Deb Fisher is trailing
Golly.
independent Dan Osborne by 6 percentage points with 40% of the vote in.
Wow.
That's
Is,
certainly,
is Dan related to Tom?
I bet it is.
I wonder if that's.
I don't know.
Where's he going to? Is he going to caucus with?
Nobody knows. Nobody knows where he's going to caucus. And I think the sense is if the Republicans win the majority, likely he'll probably go ahead and caucus with the Republicans.
That's
But
pretty smart.
but
Nebraska's an
he's,
odd state
uh,
anyway. They have what a
They
unicameral
have a
legislator,
unicameral
and
legislator,
then the
yeah.
electoral votes. There's 6, but 3 are undecided and 3 are for Trump.
Well, and that's because they break it down. So for the statewide vote, if you win the state of Nebraska, you get 2 votes for the senator, and then the other 4 congressional seats are allocated by which presidential candidate won that congressional seat. Very similar to the way Maine does it.
Mhm.
Maine also bifurcates their electoral process and the way they distribute their electoral votes. And I think there's one other state I just can't think of it off the top of my
I
head.
think it's just those two.
Just
And from a partisan standpoint, it's kind of a any state could allocate their electoral votes that way, but with Maine being a Democrat leaning state, but has a conservative congressional district that will often send one electoral vote to the Republicans, and then in Nebraska, that Omaha congressional district oftentimes will go ahead and lean towards the Democratic side, and so it's just kind of a single offsetting electoral vote between Maine and Nebraska that tends to balance out most presidential elections.
Well, I'll say another thing just for internal housekeeping. It looks like John Pfeiffer is going to take the largest victory versus someone from a major party in the state of Oklahoma award from me. I won it in 2022. We have a traveling trophy. I'll have to get his name engraved on it. He ended up beating his challenger 84.8% to 15. That's a pretty good number.
Now, Trey, I wasn't awarded that in 2000. I had 100% of the vote.
No kidding.
Well, you got to have a race.
Hey, now, okay, I'll leave it alone.
There's a lot of folks that have gotten elected because no one else, was on the ballot, and rightfully so, won. But you're right. 2020 is the only year that I haven't had a general, and it's a lot less stressful.
Strangely enough, Ottawa County, where my Senate District, House District 7, specifically Ottawa County, was still registered more Democrats than Republicans. And that just,
Old BF Goodrich Town.
yeah, that switched around 21, 22, and Republicans took the lead.
Yeah, there's been times that, that was the most Democratic county in the state.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
The thing that just talking about political dynamics and how the ebbs and flows of the parties and how they changed over the last, let's say, 40 years, from like the drastic change from 1980 or whenever. I just remember reading in the archives one time that when Carl Albert left his state house district, the New York Times or someone ran an article basically calling it the safest Democrat seat in the United States. And it'd be 100 years before a Republican could ever even be competitive in that seat. And it wasn't, 10, 15 years later.
Mhm.
And then now that's a Republican stronghold, conservative stronghold, Little Dixie, and,
Yep.
From Ada to Durant in that area. So it's just,
And it didn't take as
a
long
lot
as
of
I thought it was to
grandfathers
train.
that were Democrats that are
Yeah.
rolling over in their graves. As
Yeah.
the
But
shift
the parties are
has taken
completely
place.
different now. Completely. The old Democrat versus the new Democrat is completely different.
I mean, as an old blue dog, I always considered you a blue dog. Do you? And I have conversations back home with, my aunt is the same way. Your granddad will roll over his grave. She's never going to switch, but she votes Republican every time. So do you see? I'm not asking you to throw bombs at your own party, but do you think that it has changed that much? I mean, because you had such a big turnaround from the old blue dogs come over to the Republican side, and their answer was, well, the party left me. And so what do you see as a rural Democrat that I'm assuming you're still a Democrat?
Yeah.
And so what do you think the answer is?
I think it's been less of a shift on policy and more of a shift on cultural identification. And I think this presidential election is the perfect example of that, in that, the Republican nominee for president goes against, traditional Republican value after traditional Republican value on so many different issues. But, longtime Republican voters will line up with him because they feel like he gets them, and he's willing to speak truth to power and speak off the cuff in ways that lots of people would like to do, and kind of.
But I don't see them supporting what the Democrat Party, as far as the values, or at least the hyped up stuff that gets played out in the media. I don't see them. I can never see them voting Democrat for that reason. Especially when talking about abortion and things like that. I mean, and those are toxic in the media. You're never going to win that in the media. And those are the things that suck all the attention out of this room here. Because we do most things that we've had many conversations on these podcasts when Colin and I started this, when, the story back to in 2016, we got elected, we couldn't stand each other. He was an urban Democrat. I was a rural Republican, and we ended up becoming really good friends. We still debated against each other, still voted against each other, on pretty much any social issue out there. But he was here earlier today helping out. I mean, he's a good friend of mine. I don't know. It's,
I think
it's a tough deal. I mean,
I think a piece that I've observed from the time that I served in the early 2000s, and then from my observations of how legislative Republicans operate today, there's certainly been a shift in party positions.
Yeah.
And part of it's just reflective of people wanting to effectively represent their constituencies. I see you all as House Republicans today that advocate for rural working class issues that Republicans in 2006 and 2008 would have never dreamed of advocating for. And likewise, as the Democrats have become more of an urban party in Oklahoma and no longer getting elected in those rural areas, there's been such a shift from when you had a caucus of my caucus, that original caucus that had 44 House Democrats. Even within that, 65% of us were rural. And so it just by the nature of us representing those more conservative. rural
2018 is the
Democrats.
last year that you had a rural Democrat up here on the House floor. That's when the last one left. I mean,
Strangely enough, as you say that, I remember
I
when,
guess 20. I guess Ben.
20. Ben Loring was there until 20.
yeah, going back to when I registered to vote in 1987. I remember my grandmother, retired Corning glass worker, hardcore Democrat union member. I told her I registered Republican. She ripped me to shreds up and down. Why in the world did you register as a Republican? You are not rich. So it's funny how the dynamic has changed over the years.
Yeah.
And it's completely different now.
So
You know-
before we go on that, I got a little bit of update. We'll get right back in because I'm loving this. I'm loving the history.
Hey,
and the
Eddie
talk.
Dempsey pulled 86.25%. So
But he
had to
didn't
be-
run against the Democrat. He ran against the Libertarian.
You didn't say
John
that.
Pfeiffer
You
won the
didn't-
award.
You didn't count your rules. Your rules were
So
different.
anyway, Supreme Court District 3.
Can't make up your own rules. on the fly.
District 3 has pulled it within 5/100ths of a percentage point, about 200 votes separating the yes and no campaign, with the yes continuing to climb. We're actually seeing District 4 up to 49.4. They've been, flirting with 48. They've been running about a point and a half behind District 7 and a point behind District 3 all night. We're starting to see the yes campaign come back on that. And then the District 7 yes campaign has grown its lead to about a point and a half, or about 20,000 votes. So it's with the districts that are out there, it is looking one at a bare minimum. District 7, I think, survives, which is Edmondson, and it's starting to look like Gurich is going to catch up as well. And then honestly, all three of them, I think, may end up being retained if these trends continue to hold for the rest of the night. So I just wanted to interject that real quick.
No,
So that's $3.5 million for the yes and no campaigns, and likely going to retain those Supreme Court
Yeah.
justices in the end.
well, my point was going back to Walkie and I is that 85+% of everything we vote on that House floor is just it's not a partisan issue. Probably closer to 90%. It's the 5 or 6 big things a year they're going to get the media is going to, and the media loves it. Don't let them ever tell you they don't, because that's why the hype is why people want to, like I said, they get up and want to be mad. You can be mad, watch the news, but most things are done in a bipartisan fashion off of the House floor and the Senate floor. It's not a partisan issue, and so. That was one reason we started the podcast, was to just talk about the normal stuff that we do every day, because people have this, they just assume that because they, I know every day I can turn on the TV and if I look at DC, I'm going to see both sides going on TV, and they're going to talk smack about the other side, and they're going to raise a bunch of money for their campaigns, and they're really not going to do a whole lot of addressing stuff that affects me every day. And that's why it's so important that you do have a relationship with your state reps and your state senators, because that's the stuff that affects you. I mean, it's the people oftentimes the stuff that affects them the most directly, even going down, like I said earlier, to your city councils and your school boards. They want somebody else to do. They don't want to get involved, and they want somebody else to get involved for them. And so, I mean, it's different in rural, because I do feel like that we do have a constituent base that does participate, and we're their first line of government, and it's it's my Sunday school teacher is the same one who it goes back. The history is a lot stronger, I feel like, in a rural area, but it is important to continue to, if you want to have access. I mean, my number is out there. Trey's mentioned it many times. Yeah, people call us because I got our personal cell phone numbers, and so
Why not? Not to be biased, but do believe that we are a lot closer to our constituents than the other chamber.
absolutely. I mean, that's not even that's
And I think a lot of that is just the fact that we have to put our name on a ballot every 2 years.
well,
But they
yeah.
have- but still, they have the opportunity to get out and move just like we do.
They do, and I think that the underlying factor on that is the fact that, not to disparage the upper chamber in any way, shape, or form, but I think at the end of the day, our districts are half the size. People know us more, and especially when you get into you have all four of us have either had or have the rural district. People in our districts know us. They're going to know I guarantee you, when you were in office, someone knew your dad or knew your mom or knew your grandpa.
Right.
No different than myself, or I guarantee you someone knew your dad.
Yeah, I miss me time. He was a mailman.
Yeah.
Everybody knew my dad.
Yeah,
I will say Southeast Oklahoma, the senator that used to be people knew him. I would say probably more so than the House members.
Oh, you're talking about Gene?
Yeah,
Yeah,
back in the
There was a
48 to-
reason why they spent hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars and they could never beat Gene Stipe down there. And everybody else hated him, but you know who didn't hate him? The people.
those
in his
people that
district.
voted for him.
Yeah. And one of the stories I've always remember hearing about Gene Stipe is, he would take every Saturday. It didn't matter how long the day lasted. If you came to his office and you sat on the pew, he'd take the meeting.
And he had lines out the door too. People waiting to see him.
Yeah, and they would wait to see him, and he would try to resolve their problems, whether it's from a widow woman with an electric bill, or someone needing work, or someone's young son needing a job being a driver.
Haunted houses too. I know there was you had to get rid of some haunts.
Yeah, so
back then they were called haints though.
No, but he obviously had some of his demons and some of the stuff that got caught up with him. But
absolutely,
at the end of the day, he wasn't all bad.
And he was effective at helping people, and that's what so much of the disengagement with politicians and politics these days is people not feeling like their elected officials really care and really can make practical differences in their lives. And so that's when I served up here, how I voted was how I voted, and certainly there were issues that I was passionate about. But what I loved about this job was being able to do those constituent services, to be able to make real practical differences in people's lives.
This is a job where you have the unique ability to pick up the phone and make a phone call and help somebody.
Yep.
And usually when they have reached out to your office, they're on their last leg. They're usually upset. They're sad. They're happy. They're mad because they have tried every avenue of approach and they haven't got an answer yet. And so 90% of the time you can pick up the phone.
Yeah.
And now on the Senate side, it's not all. Chris Kidd, for example, a rural senator. He's like I always joke with him. I said, "You're like an old stupid horse. Let your kids ride. You're not dumb, but you're like an old stupid horse." I love Chris Kidd. He was my neighbor at the apartments. And I miss Chris Kidd. But there's not. He was active in his district, and I needed an active senator in my district. I mean, you got to, because we're so busy. I was going to be at the pie supper or the FFA, auction, or the, at Jay at the Huckleberry Fest, whether I was elected or not. And so sometimes I feel like that because they are on a 4-year term, that maybe they get comfortable. But when they have a race coming up, because that last year they're at everything, and people are like, hey.
A real quick update with 96% of the precincts in the state of Oklahoma
97%.
reporting. District 7 is now up to a 2 percentage point lead in the Supreme Court. The District 4 has got it within 9,000 votes, and District 3 has actually pulled into the lead. So
Really?
As of right now, 2 of the 3 districts look like a retention, and the District 4
At this
still
point, you're
holding
probably
out.
waiting on the few that are they're probably all from Oklahoma County. The few that are left.
Yeah, let me pull the map.
While you're doing that, Trey, gentlemen, I'm going to bow out. Colonel Kennedy's here. He's going to jump in here. I think he's going to be on camera. I know he has a few people with him, but I want to say one thing, that congratulate you three for being here and doing what you do. Is what you see on Fox News and what you see on CNN is not what you see in the Oklahoma House nor the Oklahoma Senate. We actually work together. We get along. We know each other outside this building. We treat each other with respect, and we always do. So you're not going to see the circus here that you're going to see on the national level.
It's been fun. This was a learning experience, and I'm glad that we did it. I'm glad we got a good producer that's doing this. I'm glad you came on. I mean, Steve and I are thick as thieves. I mean, we're
Absolutely
way up in Northeast. There's only one rep further northeast than me, and that's Steve Bayshore. So,
but we like to say Northeast Oklahoma. We don't say District 5, District 7. We're Northeast Oklahoma, and we operate that way.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
always,
brother.
Always
Thank
a
you,
pleasure,
guys.
brother. Be good. We got one more. We got another one coming on here. We got Representative Chris Kennedy, who is in his final term. He is a colonel. He is a former Marine Corps officer, and then when he moved back to Oklahoma, don't trip on them wires. He is a colonel in our Air Guard, the JAG officer. Class of 2014, same class as John Pfeiffer. And he's going to finish his final 2 years. They're doing the switch. Come on, guys. I can only jumble around so much.
You're doing great. Keep killing
We
time.
got you. If you notice, Condor was sitting here earlier. We got his. There's nothing wrong with it.
So, Kennedy, I don't know if you've been following this, but District 3 has pulled into the lead. The yes campaign has pulled into the lead. Supreme Court District 4 is still down, and District 7 is up to a 2 percentage point lead when it comes to the retention ballot. If that's probably the last thing that's really pending statewide now.
Any surprises tonight?
No, actually, I think it's a status quo on the state side, House and Senate. You've got a couple of Senate seats, which were very competitive. You had 47, which is Pro Tem Greg Treat's seat,
Yeah.
and our brother, Colonel Kelly Hines, won.
Talked about him earlier. 160th SOAR guy, Special Operations Aviation Regiment. Colin Doyle, they've lugged him around many times, I guarantee you, with the 75th Ranger Regiment.
Absolutely. So Joanne Dossett won overwhelmingly, and I haven't seen Senator Rader's numbers, but
He won.
I think he won.
Yeah, he did win.
So you look at the House. I ran numbers for polling locations for Emily Geis, which is
big win. Yeah.
John Eccles. Yeah, bigger win.
66%.
We all love John Eccles, but she won that.
Well, we talked
Way
about it.
bigger.
You know, it was you talk about a difficult race when you're going against a name. I mean, Eccles is a 12-year member and an 8-year A and B chair. Great member, good statesman. And when his brother ran, but you talk about a person that's a good person. And when Emily won that, and the now Representative-elect Geis won that, the first person reached out to her was John Eccles and his brother Matt. So the Eccles family is a good family, not just a good politically and statesman, but they're good people.
No, I agree with that. I think that Representative Eccles, we hope, will be the next Attorney General. We'll see what happens.
We'll see. You know, the next 2 years, we're going to have a big governor's race. We're going to have a ton of statewide elected races. How much do you think that this presidential election plays on our next governor's election?
It plays a lot, depending on what happens. When we're watching the polling data come out here, I think whoever the next president will be will determine how the candidates will handle the president. So if Harris wins, then the candidates that are running are going to be very anti-Harris. And then if Trump wins, then obviously the candidate's going to have to figure out how to manage that. So I think it's going to play a huge role in all the statewide races, all of them.
So you just finished up. You had a primary this year, didn't have a general.
Right.
Finished up your last primary. So you and there's not very many left in your class. You got Pfeiffer, you got Chad.
We got Representative Caldwell, Representative LePack.
Oh, I forgot about LePack, the gentle giant.
And we have our one we adopted, Representative Ken Luttrell, which I think won big tonight.
He did. He did win big tonight. I talked about him earlier. He was a former member who came back in 2018, and he'll term out with y'all. So you got four left in your
Four
class.
strong.
Four
Yeah.
strong.
Yeah.
So what do you hope to accomplish your last 2 years?
Just make the trains run on time and get good things done and help the current leadership, future leadership, make the house great, right?
I'm excited, man. I mean, it goes by quick. My 8 years has flown by. I really noticed it when I look at my kids. I've got one more election, and golly, I remember driving up here and when we got sworn in 2016 and talking to three of my predecessors, and they said, "What do you think?" And I said, "I don't know. It's a crazy feeling. I get to go work in that building." And they said, "Well, if you ever pull out of your apartment, you don't get that feeling, then get your butt home because you're wasting tax dollars." And so, I still do, man. This is what an awesome. I mean, I imagine being back in here.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably one thing you got to miss as being a former member is getting to work at this building.
Yeah, it's and you all have put in so much work in just the physical presence of the state capitol with the renovations that's happened the last decade. It is I took a lot of pride in getting to come to work in this building when I served 15 years ago, but the facility that you all get to work in that is accessible to all Oklahomans to come and interact with their government.
There was a lot
So-
of construction my first few years. To see what it is now, I mean, they took a beautiful building and they made it. I mean, the colors, the schemes they use and everything. It's pretty awesome. It's the best museum we have in the state.
Yeah.
And people need to come here. You know, I mean, like Trey and I talk about, we don't get a whole lot of constituents during session. And so when we do, it's very special. But to come in this building and see the artwork and see the history, Kevin McDougal and I used to, when the construction was going on, there was temporary walls and doors everywhere. And I won't mention who, but we got the code to the master code to all the locks. And I remember we started that. We were in special session in the winter of 2017. We just started going through stuff, and to see the old stuff behind the walls that you don't see. I mean, we went on top of the roof, and I may have taken a picture on one of those little. I had leather soled
I think
boots on it. It was
generations
snowing,
of legislators have
yeah.
done that. I might have one of those pictures too.
Well, Candy, you got some guests you want to bring on?
No, I brought a few people here that I think can give you different perspectives. The state FOP president,
Mark Nelson.
Mark Nelson's here. Larry Brook, plumbers and pipe fitters, 344. He has a different perspective. I brought a law student that I'm working with that is a millennial, unlike you and I. And I think she, what's that? Oh, okay. Well, you can banter with her.
You
yeah.
got 2 million. You
Oh, yeah.
You can do it.
Yeah.
Me and Colin do it.
Yeah. So,
Right, 2008, even though he went to Guthrie. 07, okay.
no, I appreciate you guys doing this tonight, and I came to sort of give you an update. And frankly, on the state side, it's a status quo, but I felt like we could bring a few people up here that can give you a different perspective. So,
Hey, definitely friends of ours. I mean, the state FOP president, Mark Nelson, good person, good people. He's always been a friend, and you know, you and I have worked on a lot of stuff. When you talk about first responders and
PTSD.
PTSD, and
how many years have you and I worked on that?
well, it was when it finally a bill passed the House. It was, or actually, we got a bill done. It was like 7 years.
Yeah, well, we shut the whole thing down to get it done, right?
We did. I mean, that was a crazy time. I don't want to relive that with my bills, the way they were with my bills, the way what happened to them after that. But you got to do what you got to do.
That's right. So Mark is and I think he's up next. He's
Yeah,
not only
I'm going to get up and I'm going to let him sit here, and I can stand beside you. But
okay, great.
come on up here, Mark. So this is coming into the camera, and you can stay too, or if you got to,
No,
whatever you want to do.
just clear a chair out.
We'll jump up there then, Mark. Or here, sit here. How about we'll make it easy?
Yeah,
Change
so
the seats. We've got Mark Nelson. He is, as Representative Kennedy mentioned, he's the state FOP president for the state of Oklahoma.
and also Oklahoma City. He's dual hats.
yeah.
So we all know what FOP stands for, Fraternal Order of Police. But you may just tell our viewers that they may not know the acronym.
Yeah, that acronym stands for Fraternal Order of Police. It's the largest law enforcement organization in the state. Represents over 7,000 law enforcement officers here in the state, county, and municipal police officers.
Y'all had a pretty good win when you talk about y'all represent sheriff's deputies and stuff like that, or no?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
Well, the Sheriff's Association.
Sheriff's Association.
Yeah,
but
dual.
y'all,
We have a lot of sheriff's deputies who are members. Yes, sir.
I was gonna say last year they had we passed that piece of legislation that increased some of their compensation to get them up. to
Gave
more
them
of a livable
grants to
wage.
right.
Yeah, it was a big deal for them. Very helpful, especially some of the smaller agencies, departments who don't have access to resources. They're super helpful. Glad and that was helpful for them.
There's a former sheriff from Southeast Oklahoma, Big Timmy Turner, that's getting ready to join us up here in the next couple of weeks as we get them sworn in. I don't know if you know Tim.
Yes, I've met him.
Good
You know,
people.
Timmy Turner won a 5-way primary.
I know without a runoff.
Crazy.
So what do you, when you're looking at moving forward here, obviously you guys are here, you guys are in the state, you guys have members because you look out for your members. And so what do you hope to accomplish as the state FOP president, moving forward? What's big ticket items that you're kind of looking for?
Well, we had a humongous win last year with Senate Bill 102. Representative Bayshore was the author of that here in the House, and that was a huge deal for our members as it relates to their ability to retire after 25 years in law enforcement. So we're actually having a meeting later this week to kind of determine our priorities, but on a broader scale, relationships with our elected officials that support law enforcement and don't just support it in word, but in action. The three of you sitting up here, Representative Bayshore, just a model of legislators, elected officials who working in their districts, but also standing for law and order. That's probably the top item for us.
Do you have any races that surprised you tonight, or anything you were tracking?
Yeah, not surprising. We were heavily supportive of Kelly Hines and his race up in Senate District 47, and I was glad to see him win. His military background, no doubt that he stands with law enforcement and stands for law and order.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a great member in the Senate. I mean, this is in my 8 years, and probably in your 10 years, going on 11. The House seems pretty normal. We're usually the rowdy side, and I kind of thrive in that environment. I kind of get down with that stuff, but it's kind of nice to sit back and see it's level. I think we're gonna, with obviously there's a leadership change, and I'm excited. Just Trey mentioned on the podcast a few weeks ago, this is the most tenured legislature that we've had since 2004. And so looking back, I mean, we went through a lot of battles and a lot of crazy times, but it's good to be normal. There's some stuff going on in the Senate here, coming up, and I'm glad I'm a House member. Someone asked me what my post-session forum. I do post-session forum. I do pre-session, mid-session, post-session. They said, "What do you hope you accomplish?" In this coming up session, and I guess it's the 60th. Yeah, we're starting the 60th.
Start the 60th.
What do you hope to accomplish? And I said, well, like normal stuff. I need some roads and bridges.
Right.
That's why it's important for us to talk about that stuff, because you don't see it on TV. You don't hear about the good stuff that we do in this chamber here, or in either chamber. You see what you see on TV. And so, infrastructure, man, there's a highway, there's a road project in my district that finally, I mean, they've been working on this for 40 years. And this was done not just with the state. It was a combination of the state. It was a combination of the tribes,
Sure.
And the federal government. And so we got that thing done. That's a $60 million project with roads. And I got a call from, I think it was a Black Wall Street Times call, man. And they wanted it was a slanted. They kind of wanted to make it, the interview be slanted. And I said, hey, you want to have a candid conversation. This has been, you got to know the history of the project. This was, Rick Littlefield started talking about this in 1985. It's 40 years later. And I said, anytime I can get the state at the table with tribal government and the federal government, and we can compromise and come to some agreements and get positive stuff done, then I'm going to take that as a win. And it ain't a parts of this year. And so, so that's what I want to focus on. We've voted on a lot of crazy stuff, or not crazy stuff, but stuff that sucks all the bandwidth out of the room. I mean, but at the end of the day, I mean, honestly, your constituents, they expect you to come up here and get the people's job done and not waste their tax dollars. And so,
Sure.
Like
Well,
I said,
I do want to say thank you to you and Representative Kennedy. Of course, any of the House members who helped us to bring workers' comp and PTSD being recognized as a workers' comp injury for first responders. That happened last year as well. And Senator Treat, who is in 47 that Hines is replacing, actually was a Senate author. But I mean, 6+ years of hard work. And so that, I think, not just in the short term, but in the long term, we'll start to see dividends paid off for
honestly, that's why you serve. I mean, that's a bill that I will look back 30 years from now and know that, it was hard. That was a big lift. I mean, we sat in many meetings with I can't tell you how many fights and just dadgum, it was not a good environment. And we actually left meetings and said, you guys come to us when you're ready to get serious about this, then we can sit down at the table. And to see it get done last year, I mean, that was a big lift. I mean, we burned some political capital a few years ago in a judicial committee, but that's stuff like that's important. And I'm willing to risk, my position up here or whatever to get good stuff done. And so,
well, it goes to, it's a precipice of politics in Oklahoma is law enforcement. You want to be in a position where you can be elected. You need law enforcement support, 100%. And there is no other group that holds more weight than law enforcement. And I am happy to stand with them, and I know the rest of you are too. We got a couple of the bills done for law enforcement this year, and I look forward to what the cops and the FOP bring to the table. so we can work on those issues and pass them. Honestly, Mr. President.
No, we appreciate it, and that's an understatement. Just being able to have the conversation and find a path to get something done, even if it's not what both sides want. We're at the table for that to help the over 10,000 cops in this state.
Awesome. Well, one thing before we're going to get off, I think we're going to come off the air around probably, I think Josh is thinking we're going to have a hard out at 10 o'clock p.m. Just some brief overviews of some of the races. Essentially, the state house has stayed pat. They kind of both sides, Republicans, Democrat, kind of held each other serve. We're going to have the same makeup that we had in the 59th legislature. I believe in the Senate, there's no big surprises over there. We didn't see any upsets. One thing that it's as we get deeper into the night, we're seeing pretty sure that at the end of the day, the judicial court, District 7, which would be Evanston, he's got a close to a 25,000 vote lead now, a full 2 percentage points with the remaining votes out that are in the yes territory, which is urban Tulsa County, which has been leaning yes all night. I think it's still within the realm of reason with 3% reporting out there that District 4 could come back into play about being down about 9,000 votes. And District 3 is now up to about a 0.5 percentage point lead to the tune of about 5,000 or 6,000 votes. So it's going to be down to the wire. But it looks, in my opinion, I would be very shocked if at least District 3 and 7 don't get retained. And just seeing where the votes that are not in yet, that are still out, with predominantly being Oklahoma County, 2 Comanche County precincts, and then about 15 to 20 Tulsa County precincts, which have all been breaking pretty much towards the yes camp at anywhere from a 10 to a 12% margin. I think that those 2 districts are going to hold on, which would be your Gurich and your Edmondson.
Cogger. Gurich, Edmondson, and Cogger are the 3.
Cogger. I think Cogger is going to be the one that is still going to be really iffy on whether they get retained or not.
So Ryan, our co-host tonight, Ryan McMullen, had mentioned Oklahoma County. He thought that was going to be a surprise county this year and go with Harris. Just seeing the report that Trump did win Oklahoma County, wanted it was a close 49-7-1 to 48-03. So I did also seen the race, Sheriff Johnson, Oklahoma City, that was called. He won re-election as well. So
Tommy did.
Yep.
Okay,
I
good.
was seeing it flash across my phone from the AP. So
Oklahoma goes looks all again a
77 counties.
77 county sweep for former President Trump. I'm sure one thing that we were tracking earlier, it looks to me again, I'm not making a prediction, but with Bernie Moreno being up 5 points in Ohio now, with the lion's share of the votes from Cuyahoga County, which is Cleveland, and Columbus and Cincinnati being in, it's going to be a very, very hard road back for Senator Brown to take back that seat. So that's probably another pickup that the House or that the U.S. Senate's going to get if I was a betting man. Montana, it looks like Senator Tester is probably going to go down. Eric Hovde has pulled ahead in Wisconsin, actually. That's very shocking with 60% of the vote in. Michigan, Mike Rogers has pulled ahead of Elise Slokik. But the caveat on that is Wayne County, which is Detroit, still only has 1% of their votes counted. That'll be a very, very large stronghold for Democrat Congresswoman Elise Slokik. So Michigan, I think, will go into the wee hours of night when it comes to that U.S. Senate race there. But
final thoughts, Trey?
I think final thoughts. I'd like to thank all of our viewers and listeners that have stuck with us over the last 4 years. We really wanted to try this out. This is kind of a test experience. We've kind of always wanted to be where we're more live, but also at the same point in time incorporated the visual aspect to our podcast. And
Well, it's not as easy as you would think when you're talking about a 3-hour show.
3-hour show with 4 members and we were, a lot of people were worried about us filling time, Josh, but I think my final thoughts is this went way better than I thought it would. And I think that it's a key contributor to that is our 2 co-hosts, our 2 guest co-hosts with Ryan McMullen and Colin Dool. Ryan is in the radio business some, and he hosts the Oklahoma Road Show. Did I say it right?
What's Happening Road
The
Show.
What's Happening Road Show
Hobart,
in
Oklahoma.
In Hobart, Oklahoma, Hobart, America, the pride of Kiowa County, unless you ask people from Snyder. Anyway, so that's how I've gotten to know him over the years as being a guest on his. And I'm very, very thankful you made the drive up from Southwest Oklahoma to join us today and give us your perspective. One, as a former member and an outsider, not currently a member like myself, Josh, and Colin, but, also as someone that is a member of the other party and to bring some balance into thought to the way we presented tonight. And I'm very, very appreciative of that. I'm appreciative of you, Colin, for getting involved in this as well. And I would be remiss, Josh, if we didn't call out our amazing producer, Caroline Estes. She's worked really hard. And
this was on a whim.
She put a lot of work, and she was like
Absolutely.
a cat on a tin roof
I'm
earlier
sure
today.
that
She was a little
when I
bit
seen
nervous.
Jason Warp's face in the lounge today, I think he was probably pretty nervous too. But no, I think it was a great show. I think as far as the state, no real surprises like we mentioned. I think we talked to Kyle earlier. It's kind of a wash. I think we're looking at 81-20. I think is the makeup. But big thanks to our 2 co-hosts, Representative Colin Dool and former Representative Ryan McMullen. Thank you guys so much. It was a great night. Then we had Representative Pfeiffer here earlier. We had Representative Bayshore. We had even our old buddy Walkie out helping set stuff up. We've had Menger here. We've got Lawson. We had Kennedy come in.
Manger with the pizza.
Manger
We
with the
appreciate
pizza.
you.
Yeah, we've had a lot of members. Nick Archer sending us text with stuff coming across the AP. We've had Lawson downstairs. So great night. Thank you, Caroline. Thank you, Jason Moore, for letting us do this, and we look forward to doing it again. So, Trey, once again, live from the Oklahoma State Capitol, I'm Josh West.
And I'm Trey Caldwell, and we'll see you next time, guys.